does.
Wow, that is amazing.
That wasn't on the agenda, so we'll talk about it.
Yes. That's not the, being on the agenda is not the critical factor.
Okay, well.
Is that one closer to the time than that one?
It's all good.
Yeah, that clock up there is not even close. Neither of those clocks are close. Wow.
What time it
This is
is.
surprising.
There's nobody here.
That's what's surprising.
So I have
Is that
5:50.
Dave? Oh, good.
Did you bring Dave?
Somebody just went in the back there.
Yes.
Somebody just went in the office, Trish. I don't know if is there anybody back there?
No?
There is no.
Matt, maybe you should just go in and take a look.
Rid of the safe.
Thank you, Matt.
Yep.
Okay. Well, my clock says it's time. Okay. Calling the February City Council meeting to order. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. John, you want to lead us?
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Trish, the roll call, please.
Councilmember Bob,
Here.
Councilmember Freeman,
Here.
Councilmember DeVries,
Here.
Vice Mayor West,
Yes.
Mayor Martirana.
Here.
We have a quorum, thank you.
Okay. And so, do we have any public comments, items not on the agenda for tonight? Seeing no public comment, we will move on.
Want to do Dave's first? before-
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. We have a presentation this evening that I'd like to do, item 5A. Dave Medeiros?
Yes.
We have a little plaque for you I'd like to present. It says, the City of History, San Juan Bautista, presented to David Medeiros with sincere and grateful appreciation for dedicated service to the citizens of San Juan Bautista, Historic Resources Board and Planning Commission, August 2012 through December of 2016. Excuse me. Dave, I'd like to give this to you and express my thanks and the thanks to the rest of the council for your service.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure.
Can I say something?
Absolutely.
Good evening. Thank you for this this plaque. I really appreciate it. It was my honor and my pleasure to have the opportunity to work for the city of San Juan Bautista. I just want to thank everybody for helping me get to this point in as far as my service goes. I really appreciate that, so I thank you for that. But I do want to thank some special people that helped me throughout the years, and that was the original planning commission that I worked with. So with those people in mind, I like to rattle off their names, but I think we know who they are. But a big special thanks to all of them. And the other thing is the city council, which has changed as of now. I want to thank them too, as well as particularly Rick Edge, who appointed me to that position. So I want to really thank him for that opportunity as well. The other thing I want to thank is the staff that here in San Juan Bautista that worked so hard along with me to update me on anything that I needed to know. I had no fear of finding out what needs to be known about anything that we had to do in order to make an informed decision. So I like to thank all the people that worked in the office, and they know who they are, and I know who they are. But particularly a big thanks to Roger Grimsley who has always been there for us and continues, I hope continues to do that as well. So I know right now that everybody that's here in this room have some big shoes to fill. And me, along with a lot of the public people, are looking forward to see that you do fill those shoes in a positive way and continue to move this city forward. So if that's not going to happen, I hope myself and others will point that out to you and help you in the right direction to go. So with that being said, thank you again for the opportunity and the pleasure to work with all of you, especially with all the people here in San Juan Bautista. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Okay, I think then that takes us to item 3, a closed session. I think, given with the small number of guests that we have, that we'll ask you to step out this evening and to turn off the camera at this point and the sound. And we will commence our closed session. Okay, are we back online there? Okay, Deborah, would you like to report out?
The City Council went into closed session at approximately 6:04. The item on the closed session was conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation. The City Council concluded their closed session at approximately 6:06, and advice was given to legal counsel. And that concludes the closed session report out.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to consent items.
Move to approve.
Second. Trish?
Tony and Jim?
Yeah.
Councilmember Bach?
Yes.
Councilmember Freeman?
Yes.
Councilmember DeVries?
Yes.
Vice Mayor West?
Yes.
Mayor Martino? Stated by the maker, passes unanimously.
Okay. Number 4. Number 5, Treasurer's Report. I don't see Chuck in the audience. Would you like to
He's going to be a little bit late.
should we come back to
Yeah.
We'll come back to that.
Okay.
I see Captain Taylor.
You ready for me now?
Absolutely.
Oh, sure.
We'll get you in and out in record time, maybe.
Well, yeah, it's nice of me to show up. So that would be great. I just wanted to come because I've been out for a bit. I know there's been some communication back and forth while I was gone, and so I was just reading through the emails today, but I wasn't sure what, if anything, you've been provided for this month. So just to be sure, I wanted to show up in person and make sure that I could address any concerns that you have. From what I'm hearing, some of the concerns were the commercial burglaries on 3rd Street, which there's not a lot that have come from those investigations as of this point, other than it does seem to be, like we've had before last year, kind of an opportunistic crime where it probably is the same person that decided to break into multiple storefronts, one after the other, in a time that we were not in the city. So those cases are ongoing. They're up at the Detective Bureau. They're trying to get to see if there's any video or other evidence that we have on that. Other than that, in January, there were only 17 cases taken. And really the commercial burglaries, there was 3 of those. There was a traffic accident, a couple of warrant arrests, some informational reports of vandalism, but nothing really significant to note. I also understand that there was some talk about some paintball, an issue with some paintballing going on.
Yeah, evidently somebody made. I didn't
find anything.
I saw it
I've never
alluded to it on Facebook,
Yeah.
but I didn't see any.
I didn't see any calls generated for that,
That's unfortunate.
or see that we actually had any reported issues with that. And then, I did put out a media release today on an incident that happened on 3rd Street on late Saturday night, early Sunday morning. There was an assault with a deadly weapon. We charged it as an attempt murder case. There was an altercation outside of Mom and Pop's, and the male victim was hit in the head multiple times with a bat. We ended up taking the suspect into custody for that, who's still in custody with $550,000 bail. Again, we're doing follow-up on that case, but we do have the suspect in custody. We have good evidence. We have witnesses. Luckily for us, there were 2 security guards from level 1 that on-viewed it and were there to render assistance to the victim and were the reporting party, which got us there very quickly. And it's because of that communication and that quick response that we were able to take the suspect into custody soon after the crime had occurred and recover the weapon.
Good.
So, there's not a whole lot more I can go into on that right now, but I know that there's got to be somewhat of a buzz going on about that. But then if there's any questions that any of you have or anything else that you want to know or get caught up on.
Tony?
Captain, I had a attempted burglary in one of my apartments, and they kicked in the door and broke the jamb in. But being as there was nothing stolen or anything, the deputy said that would just report it and that was it. They weren't going to do any follow-up because there were no witnesses or anything like that. Is that standard?
Well, I wouldn't say, we should still be documenting that because, it is an attempted burglary. So typically what we find is that nobody goes in, for the most part, people aren't going to go kick in the door of a business or an apartment or a home just to, oftentimes it'll be written up as a vandalism. Mm-hmm. Technically, I guess it is a damage to the property of the door, but usually the intent of the kicking of the door is to go in and steal property. So it could be that they got spooked, they heard something, somebody came around, they took off. But as far as for our stats and our report, we talked about it before with if it's not documented, it didn't happen. And that's what gets difficult for us is that we see things on social media, or we hear things going on, but then when we go to the data, there's nothing there. So do you know what, you don't have to give me the exact address, but I have an attempted
Morentis
burglary on Morentis.
Yeah.
So we did take a case number on
Yeah,
that.
it was about, what was surprising, so bold, it was about 3 o'clock in the afternoon,
Right.
you know, I mean,
And it does seem a little bit brazen that people would do that, but we do find that a lot of residential burglaries do occur during the day because that's usually when people are at school or at work. So we encourage everybody, especially through Neighborhood Watch and all that kind of stuff. Anytime you see the people in the neighborhood are the best people to know the pulse of the neighborhood, right? And sometimes we find that people feel, well, I don't want to come off as, being judgmental or have a stereotype. But we all know who frequents our neighborhoods and who maybe is usually around or not around. And for me, it's always the best neighbors are the nosiest neighbors, right? So if you have nosy neighbors, that's good because they should be calling us for everything. Because even if it's just someone walking around town, looking into car windows, ringing doorbells, there's oftentimes they'll come up like they're selling an alarm system or they're going to try to sell a product. But really what they're doing is they're going around to see who's not answering the door. And then they'll come back around to those houses. So if they get a bunch of houses in a row that people aren't answering, then yeah, you will go force the door. And that's the same thing that's like happening on 3rd Street. I know, we try to keep the historic look of the city and the way that the buildings are, just the whole look of the downtown area. But a lot of times those businesses are not fortified very well because we're trying not to put in solid core doors with no windows in them and make our storefronts here, a lot more fortified. But, alarm systems, camera systems, though those do come at an expense. Those are the best things that we can have going for us for when we're trying to follow up. So it will be sometimes when you have someone that just kicks a door and gets spooked and runs away, that maybe there's not a lot to go on. Maybe there are no witnesses, there are no fingerprints, nothing was left behind. And I think that what I like is for the deputies to be empathetic but honest with people too and really tell you what we think we can and can't do in the case. So I don't want to build somebody's expectations up and have them be disappointed either.
Can I ask a question
Absolutely.
not really related to that break-in or anything?
Sure.
You mentioned the word cameras, so I wanted to ask for your professional opinion. Do you think cameras operated by the city or possibly a downtown district or something that are just kind of aimed down 3rd Street, you think that could be of help to us in for you catching the suspects and things? Have you found it to be of tremendous help?
So I can't speak like well, I don't talk about Watsonville often anymore, but that's where I came from. But we did have some cameras around the city that were recorded on the loop, and we did make some really good cases. We had some behind an educational center where we had a lot of break-ins of cars, so we put a couple cameras out there that we can monitor their pan, tilt, and zoom, and they went to a loop on a hard drive, and it was great to have that. And so we did have some city parking lots and stuff that had that. I would say maybe contact the officials of the city of Hollister, because their camera, which they were able to do pretty cost effective. Downtown Hollister has quite a few cameras now. Some of them are pan, tilt, zoom, some of them are fixed. They all capture, and especially they had an arson recently where the camera system was invaluable for them to catch the person that started the fire. So, again, they come with a cost. I know that the city of Hollister did a lot of research into it, and from my understanding, they found a very cost-effective way to deploy a lot of cameras at one time and give, even if everybody just had the ability to go on the web and access the camera, not everybody, but anybody from the city had the ability to do that. And so what I will tell you is for us, where it's most valuable for us is when we can access the data as fast as possible. So there may be a break-in, there may be assault, there may be a robbery. And it's difficult for us when someone says, well, the manager will be in on Wednesday. and it's Saturday night.
Yeah.
And that's the only person that has the key to the vault or the password to get to it. And there's times where by the time we get to that video, it's been overwritten because you only have so much storage. So I would just say if you do decide to deploy something like that, for us, for it to be beneficial, would be to have immediate access to it, to capture it, save it, file it. Even if you can just go and anybody in the city, Roger, anybody can just go and just grab it and just preserve it, and then we can come and get it later. But a lot of times for us, we may have a deputy, or we may be able to share it with some other local officials where maybe our guys don't know who it is, but maybe someone from Hollister PD does. So if we get a screen capture, text it out to everybody, oftentimes between probation, the police department, us, that we're able to say, yeah, I know who that guy is or where he lives or that girl is, and we can go right away, because then we can recover the items that were stolen or they're still wearing the clothing. So that would be, but I would say for us that would be very beneficial for us.
I would think it would be a tremendous advantage to the city to actually give the sheriff's department and maybe level 1 a password so if you get in it, and they can access it remotely via a laptop, not even necessarily in Hollister or in San Juan, if you know what I mean, but just
From wherever.
Yeah, from wherever, and view whatever cameras we may or may not get in the future.
Sure, I mean, and as we move forward, I mean, the technology is moving so quickly. I just watched a webinar today on artificial intelligence and law enforcement, and it's amazing what things are being done right now, but it's not far away to where our deputies should be able to, on the way to a call, tap into a city-run camera system and be viewing what's going on at the location they're driving to. And that's not that far away.
Okay.
So if you have that infrastructure in place, it'll be a lot easier.
Okay. I wanted to ask about there was an altercation probably 2 or 3 weeks ago that resulted in the school being shut down, being locked down. And I believe it was a domestic dispute, and wondered if you could share anything about that.
So with school lockdowns, that's something that we're always going to do out of just an abundance of caution.
Yeah.
So anytime we have something that may be violent or has the potential to be violent, one of the most dangerous things that, I mean, aside from car stops, one of the most dangerous things that we go to is any type of domestic violence incident. And usually the will of the person to get away is so strong that if we have we may know that the person has a history of fleeing, or they already fled, or they're hiding somewhere, we're just going to go ahead and lock down what we can lock down. So most of the time, it may or may not even be necessary, and we try to weigh like making the kids and the teachers nervous.
Yeah.
But anytime we have any type of, what we would call a hot call or in-progress activity near school, we'll usually ask dispatch to lock the school down just for the safety of the kids.
Well, good. There were a number of questions about that, and I'm curious if there was what the result was, if you can share any of the result from that
So that was
particular
you're
case.
saying, was that within the month of January?
I believe so.
It was.
Shots were fired, weren't they?
That's my understanding. That
So
there
we
was
did have a negligent discharge of a firearm.
Yeah.
That would have been like about mid-January.
Yeah. Yes, on Franklin.
Franklin Street.
I'll have to look up that case and get back to you on that. I don't know. It appears that a case was taken, so probably there was some type of citation or arrest made.
Well, I understood there was an arrest. I
Yeah.
was just curious what the disposition was.
I'm not sure.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry about that.
No, it's all right. Thank you.
Anything else?
Well, I think we're all good. Thank you
All
very
right.
much.
Well, we'll do this more often, and I appreciate your time. Thanks.
Okay. Sheriff's report. Roger, level 1 security report.
Yeah, we have Vicky in here, and just kind of give us a summary. We redacted a lot of it because some of it that we put in your thing here were confidential, and we didn't want to alert somebody, so we did that.
Seems like that maybe there's a need for us to start a list of things we had a conversation about, sort of things that we need to consider as they come up, this being one of them. You know, this report coming to us, it becomes public record, and, you know, maybe there's a need for it to be a city manager, between you and the city manager, and then there's a summary report given to us. But I thought that's just one of the things, and as an example, that I thought I should mention here with the council. And if there's other things that occur to you, please make a note so we can revisit them. But anyway, go ahead.
So I'm JT with Level 1 Private Security, and we submitted our reports from day one till now as of the 20th. And I know a lot of the reports probably didn't get to them. I've talked to the gentleman already. But is there any questions or concerns that you guys have? I'm open to that. Anything that I can help out with?
The only thing I noticed is there sure is a lot of cars with no license plates on them.
Well, Tony, actually, that's probably one of the biggest things. There's a lot of them with, paper plates. There's a lot of them that we can't get the plate, frankly, because they're speeding. We're seeing a lot of that. From day one, you guys discussed it with us with actually the two about speeding cars and reckless driving and stuff. We're pointing it out and trying to get that as much as can. Unfortunately, we have lost it that we have to follow as well. So, but a lot of times you'll see that there's no license plate, and that's because, frankly, we probably can't get it. So, I want to bring something up to all of you guys right now if I can, and maybe you guys can help me because I need your help. I think the public, after talking to Chris and Roger, I think the public needs to be let know about us a little bit more and what our job activity is and our job duties are, period. I think that the public's getting the wrong impression. We're civilians just like along with you guys, and we have specific laws we have to follow as well. And I think a lot of people think that we're a private police department or the sheriff's department. We're not. And I think we're taking a lot of heavy publicity over that. We have specific job duties that we can and cannot do. And I think we're getting that is that they think that we're more than just an average citizen, and we're really not. We have to go do specific training, specific guidelines, but I see a lot of stuff on social media and a lot of stuff, and I think they've got the wrong impression of us. So I need your guys' help in educating the public, if that's all possible.
And I will say is that from the onset, we were always viewed the thing as the eyes and ears in these evening hours and then early morning, and I think it's working. JT keeps us appraised almost on a daily basis when some things occur, and that's a great asset to it. And a lot of times I'll come in early in the morning, I'll see them and interface with them, and it's that eyes and ears and everything. Unfortunately, they don't have the arrest record in there, and even our insurance has refrained them from doing that and exercising that thing. So there's a thing. But I have been talking to JT about not parking violations and cars that were parked in driveways and over, and he lets us know, and then Matt and I, as a code enforcement officer, can get out and then start issuing those. And I think that interface has been fantastic lately.
As I expressed to you, I think that an article in the Mission Village Voice perhaps would be a good way for us to disseminate information. I
think that's a good idea.
And I think we should probably help facilitate that. I'll talk to Ann. I have not spoken to her, but go ahead, Matt.
Connie and I also created under the departments tab on the website, we have law enforcement now. It has contact information for both the San Benito County Sheriff's Department and Level 1 Security's jobs. It's a PDF of their duties. So if the public wants to know exactly what we've actually contracted with them to do, it's on there. So if you guys want to direct anybody there, you're welcome to.
Okay. That's a great idea. I've fielded a few comments. I'm not going to call them complaints yet, because some of them were positive, about your jobs or the job you're doing. And so I think, people are confused both ways. They're thinking you guys don't do anything, and some people think you're doing too much or afraid you're going to do too much. So an article, I think, would be and could probably get appropriate so we can just tell the people what you can do. Exactly.
Following up with the break-ins that happened, I just want to let you guys know that in the past couple of weeks that we've been working, because we're now in 20 days, so 50 days with us, we have found almost 8 businesses unlocked and open. And when I say open, their doors are open, their back of their businesses are open. I don't want to go into detail with what businesses they are because I don't think that's fair. But I will say that I think that due diligence says that we need to secure our own stuff. We need to make sure that our businesses are locked up. And the thing we're fighting is that we're going to come to a business and my guys all walk downtown, they walk all the businesses. I think that's a part of our job, is that we make sure that everything's secure. And we'll come along an open door, and as I've been sharing with Roger and Matt and with you, Chris, is that what do we do when we find that open door? Can any of you guys help me? Because I know the answer, I just want, so we're not going to leave that open door in that open business. We're not going to enter that open door, that open business. We're not going to do anything, so we have to stand there. And therefore, you're taking more time out of my officers, and when I say this in almost respect, from patrolling with their normal job duties to sit at a door. And don't get me wrong, these gentlemen say, call me in the middle of the night, I'll come stand by the door until somebody gets there. But that's an issue I see, is that we're going to be tied up on a door for 45 minutes just until the responsible gets down there. So what I've asked is Roger and everybody to get together and try to come up with a responsible list, just to see if we can get that, so in case we have an emergency or we have an open door, we can give them a call and say, hey, your business is open, we're standing by.
And just to follow up of what JT is telling, we're revising our business applications, and that comes up in April, where we're going to have a place on there where they have to put emergency phone numbers and who to contact in after-hour work. Right now, a lot of times it's just the property owner and it's not the tenant. So we want to make sure that we have an avenue, and then we will make that phone number and emergency contact available to level 1, as well as the sheriff department.
Our business licenses, or these contact forms, are they updated yearly, or is there a length of time before renewal, I guess is the word I'm looking for?
Yeah, yearly we renew them, and it's always about in April, and then as new business comes in, it's an ongoing process. But I think it's JT brought an interesting point, because when we looked at our business license application, it's the property owner and then the applicant and everything, but there is not a lot of detail of how to get a hold of those people and who to get a hold of, and I think we want to fine tune that so that we can be more responsive.
Good.
Mm-hmm. In the last couple of weeks, we've seen, well, does anybody have questions in regards to that?
In regards to what? The break-ins?
The open doors and policies.
Oh, no.
Unlock businesses.
I have some questions about the break-ins, but I can wait.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
So on your report for January 24th, 2017, one of the things you said is that you advise the owners that the security schedule fluctuates on the needs of the city. And then up above that it says at 2 o'clock in the morning you were off duty for in-house training. So my question is that a time period when you would normally be on patrol on 3rd Street if it weren't for the off-duty, the in-house training?
Yes.
And how often will those off-duty trainings occur when in those morning hours that leave the city vulnerable?
I hope not anymore, Dan.
Okay. Because these break-ins seemed like they were detectable by your guys if they were driving around in the town at that time. They're pretty violent, loud, crashing glass, big chunks of wood thrown through there and so forth, right? So, I mean, in other words, can we tell the public with a straight face that there was, just a window of opportunity, these crooks just got lucky and hit it right, but otherwise normally level 1's going to be there to prevent this kind of thing from happening in the future?
Yes.
All right. That's all I have.
Okay.
Yeah. But I want to comment on this too, Dan. Last meeting before we signed our contract, you guys all agreed that we can fluctuate our schedule, and that we were going to be changing it up from different times, and that was going to be okay. Am I right, Roger?
That is correct. We wanted to keep the element of surprise where it's not a standard route that they take is be flexible enough to where they keep everybody on the edge.
I think that is the right approach. If they ever knew there was a set schedule, they would just pick a time other than that set schedule and have that, you know, that's not good.
Yeah, I agree. In the last couple of weeks, we've been working with you guys. Like you see in our reports, there's been a lot of suspicious vehicles, a lot of parking violations, a lot of vehicles. The biggest one is at the Union Bank parking lot. We seem to have the same vehicles parked over and over again. I did relay that to Roger and to Matt, and they said that they would look into it. I want to touch base with something that happened, which you guys don't have this in front of you yet. It's got to go through them. They got an email, but I want to touch base with what Captain Taylor said. There was an incident on 218 at 3:20 in the morning. My officers observed an assault with a deadly weapon. They took action in calling 911 and preventing it. Our body cameras and our vehicle cameras did capture a lot of it on video surveillance. I cannot, I have to turn that over to the sheriff's department and stuff like that because they are investigating it. We were there, we did see it. Our officers probably will be being subpoenaed into court for this. In my opinion, and I hope I can say this, I believe it was pretty horrific. I don't think it's something that any of us ever want to go through, but it was big. And that, with saying that, I want to bring this to the council's attention. My officers are carrying nothing. And I hate to say that in the general public on television, but my officers are carrying nothing but a radio. And I've talked to a lot of the deputies because our communication is good. I've talked to a lot of people, and we have a pretty dangerous job. We don't know what's around the next corner. So what I'm asking the council to do is to grant us permission for a pepper spray and/or taser or baton, which are all non-lethal. Something so they can protect themselves. And I'm asking you guys that because I think it's in need of it. The subject that was in this altercation did come at the officers, I can say that. So I don't want to go into too further detail. I'll let the sheriff's department give you their investigation and let it come out. But I do think that there's a need. There's been a couple occasions where we need something for personal protection.
Okay. I think Tony?
Is there any problem with our insurance with that?
If they were making this request, we'd have to contact Parsec and make sure that they didn't need to adjust the amount of insurance that they're required to provide.
Yeah, I would think
it's strictly for protection,
right?
Not for arrest or anything.
No, it's not for arrest. It's for protection.
Well, I would think that. I can carry pepper spray.
Tony, that.
And I wouldn't mess with you, Tony.
Well, no, it's like Jolene Cosio. She has a problem with 2 German Shepherds. I told her, I says, give them some pepper spray. They won't bother you anymore.
I think, we certainly, it's something that needs to be looked into by staff and the attorney.
I would say if our insurance doesn't have a problem with it, that, as far as I'm concerned, it would be a good idea.
Dan, go ahead, Dan.
This is how I would respond to that, JT. If you want to formally make that request to the city, that you provide a written request with exactly what it is you'd like your officers to carry, and then include with that policies, procedure, training that you will incorporate into the use of those things. Because I'm sure that information would be that which the city attorney would then turn over to the insurance company to make them feel at ease.
Absolutely.
It would make me feel at ease too, just to know that it's going to be, if that's going to happen, to be properly done.
Yeah, absolutely. I can put all the training together and what we have to do and to get our certificates and go through our yearly trainings and stuff like that. Absolutely.
Okay,
Thank you.
great. And then maybe you could do that for the next meeting, because I know you probably want to get something like that implemented sooner rather than later, I'm assuming, right?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Okay. So it sounds like we want that to be provided to the city staff and the review by Roger's staff and the attorney, and then we'll maybe have it as a discussion item then for our next meeting.
Yeah, if he can get us what Dan has outlined there, and then we can review it, get it to our attorney, and then get it over to Parsec. Then we'll be ready with a staff report with a recommendation.
Okay, for the next meeting. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because they may have no problem with pepper spray, but not like
okay, thank you.
I was gonna say, I think the taser is a different level.
Yeah.
I've read there's been a lot of lawsuits about people being injured or lethally.
With?
Taser, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so.
Okay.
I think that's a different animal than.
Yeah, well, the insurance company would have some break where you can do this, but not that.
Tony?
JT,
Yes, sir.
do you go up in the cemetery?
Yes, we do.
Good, okay. Because we've had problems up there. In fact, they cut the locks here, but they couldn't get in the building. Just
We're noticing that your water tower is getting, that the gates are being jimmied and stuff like that, or the water plant up here.
The tank.
The tank, and
Oh.
the lock and the gates are being messed with and tampered with. We're also finding another business, which is a pretty big business in here with a lot of little children. We're finding open doors there as well. You know, the school, we're making contact, we're trying to get a thing. Unfortunately, I feel sorry for Joe with Public Works because we call him a lot, you know, for assistance to try to get him to go, because I don't feel like we're waking up a city council member that early in the morning, so I'll wake up Joe. But he's been a really great asset. We are seeing the sheriff's department a lot. We're all working hand in hand with them. Those guys have been great to us, I'll tell you. And everything else is good. Like I said, we document everything, we turn it in, we try to get it in either on a 3-day basis or a weekly basis to Roger and Trish and to Matt. And I apologize, a lot of time I'm tied up with other things, so I apologize.
Okay.
Anything else?
that's
Good, thank you.
Thank you guys very much.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, would you find it,
Fire chief's report.
would you find it helpful if I actually start a spreadsheet with the locations of those incidents and types, and then we could possibly just sort of map it at some point and see where the kind of hotspots are? I mean, it might be just a good way to look for trends, and it really wouldn't take me much time because I have to read through it anyway to do all the protecting, so.
Yeah, I certainly think having it in a spreadsheet makes it much more usable.
Okay.
Much more valuable.
Okay.
Okay, fire chief's report. I don't think we have anything from the fire department.
Yeah, there's a report.
Is there? I'm sorry. Oh, yes, there
Yeah, there's
is.
a
I'm
report.
sorry. Any questions about the fire chief's report? No one? Excuse me, the library report? No one? Okay, administrative report, Roger.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, you know, basically Public Works, they've been extremely busy with the cleaning up of the storm damage from the trees down there and some minor flooding, and even this Monday we had quite a bit of rain coming down, and we had to close off the San Juan Highway there right by Prescott because it exceeded the banks and kind of flooded that intersection. And the Sheriff's Department and OES was working hand in hand with us, and Joe responded and worked very well with them. As we know, our storm drain system is, kind of substandard, but by and large, it accepted a majority of the runoff, and we didn't have any major flooding at the intersections.
Excuse me.
In the planning and building, Matt's been extremely busy redesigning that website and coming up with and creating a new website, and I think he can speak to the context of this management software that he's been looking into,
I'm actually putting together a report for next council meeting where I'm going to bring to you a full staff report on all the options that were explored. I'm getting each of them to give us a 10-page or less summary that I'm going to include as attachments to that staff report. Great. And that'll include cost estimates and comparisons in terms of functionality and stuff. So.
Okay, thank you.
And again, my job is to keep looking for sites for wells. And I have some meetings set up with 2 property owners out there across from the Mission RV Park in this next week here, where I'll be meeting with them to see if we can explore 2 sites Matt and I have identified, probably, I think it was about 4 different options that we had and stuff like that. So we'll be reporting back to you very shortly.
Okay. I think it would be helpful to hear back before the next
Yes.
council meeting. You know,
Oh,
maybe
yes.
an email with an update of some kind. I'd certainly like that, to get some feedback. Okay. Any questions on the administrative report? Okay, moving right along. Why don't we, at this point, we don't have Chuck, why don't we go back to the treasurer's report and do that? I think that would be, I think we should go ahead and just knock that out.
Yeah, okay. Basically, you have an outline of the financial highlights that we've identified. Our general fund has a fund balance of a positive 282. And that's a good thing. The enterprise fund shows a net loss of about $64,000 as compared to prior. Last year we had 259 at this time. So the difference is primarily due to higher debt service and service costs in the prior year that we had, where now with the refinancing, our debt service is much lower. Overall, our cash flow removal, the accrual and depreciation is a positive 737, and you'll see that in our fund balance. The general fund revenues were 928, and that's higher than budget by $349,000. And the general fund expenditures were lower by budget of 156. So more revenue and less expenditures is always a good sign.
Yes.
Yeah. The enterprise fund, we're at 949, which is higher than budgeted by $10,000, and we're experiencing a little bit more higher utility costs, the PG&E costs, and we're running it at peak hours, and I think this is why in the next discussion here, and we were talking about a community power resources ability, I think it's going to be important for us in the long run to take a look at that. Our enterprise expenses were $1,013,000, which was lower because we've held off on a couple of capital improvement projects in that, just to kind of wait until the end of the fiscal year, where then we can start to look in the months of March, April, and May, to where we can start accelerating some of those capital improvement programs.
Okay.
Any questions you had?
No, sir. The warrant list?
And the warrant
list. It was
list.
a very long warrant list this month.
Yeah, and as you recall, at the last meeting, the warrant list was very low, and that was because we were a little bit behind schedule. And
Yeah, I think we ran checks on like the first of the
right.
February.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so this year it's a little bit longer and everything, and then just for me to highlight is you'll see a lot of $500, $700 and stuff, and I usually flag that, and basically about $4,300 is refunds from people putting money up for the community center, and then we just pay that back because there was nothing that we had to do to clean it up for them. And then the $19,000 was part of the Abbey Park bus stop covered area, and that was a grant received from the San Benito County transportation and COG funds and stuff like that. That was a $46,000 grant, and I think the contract was $43,000.
So have they paid us yet, or are we?
We submitted the bill to them, and we should be getting the check any day now and everything. Okay. And then approximately $11,772 would be reimbursable from the Dadwell ARCO station that resulted in an agreement that our city attorney developed with Dadwell, where he'll be reimbursing us back that portion. And that totals about $35,000. So the net warrant list was about $113,601.
When will the Dadwell be mailing a check? Do we need?
We have to submit him an invoice on that. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Let's do so quickly. Otherwise, we need to call a credit bureau.
Yeah, right, yeah.
I hope
you're joking, John.
It hasn't been an issue.
No, it's never,
35 subways in a hotel, I think you'll be able to.
yeah, no, it's never been an issue with Mr. Dadwell, and he's,
Okay. City council committee reports, unless anybody has any other questions. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut everybody off. Okay, city council committee reports. John?
Okay, so I went to an AMBAG meeting a week and a half ago with Mayor Hollister. We had an exciting trip down there. I'll tell you, that was the highlight of it, because there was a large wreck near Rocks Road, and then we tried to cut through Rocks Road, and we got turned around by the CHP, and we ended up going over San Juan, I call it San Juan Pass, whatever you want to call it, into Salinas, well, actually, Crazy Horse Canyon Road.
Right.
It's the most exciting trip to Marina I've ever had, but anyway, we did get there in time to pass the approval of their new long-range transportation planning agenda, or whatever you want to call it, project. So and we came back. The trip back was much less exciting. Then Dan and I have been meeting, as you know, we formed a little subcommittee on business development, and we're pleased to say we've been working diligently on it. We've had a success already. We heard that the young couple that came to the last meeting has found a place to lease, and that's going to be real good for the community. We have talked about cooperative tasting room with the Cienega Valley winemakers here in town. We've talked about possibly with the Randall Graham and his new venture, which is in the county, but it'll be of tremendous value to us bringing people to San Juan. We've also talked about the possibility of an organics festival with growers and processors of organic food, grass-fed beef. We have a lot of people around in the San Juan Valley who do that type of thing, and it'd be worthwhile. We've also kicked around the idea of meeting with the state park and a former state senator named Rusty Reyes on the possibility of opening up the Plaza Hotel and renting out rooms. I would remind the City Council that this is already being done in the town of Columbia. You can go there anytime you want and rent a room in an historic hotel in Columbia. We think right now the hotel's kind of deteriorating, and we think this would be a good way to keep it up and increase tourism for San Juan. I think that's the bottom line goal there.
Great.
And we also are looking into working with Jimmy Panetta's office into getting federal funds for signage markers as making San Juan the gateway to the Pinnacles National Park.
Great.
Other than that, we haven't done much.
Nice. Tony, any?
Okay, COG, and I gave, or you all received a copy of this. This explains what happens to your impact fees, all right? And I will tell you one thing, the highway, which now Caltrans is projecting 2019 they might start.
156?
Yeah, 156, I'm sorry. And we have already set aside $10 million of our impact fees for that, towards that project. God knows how much it's going to cost. And a lot of this comes from AMBAG, but they projected $239 million be generated by impact fees, but that's through 2035. Right? And then the second part of what you got is a nexus study on how they arrive at the impact fees. So you have that for your reading pleasure.
Okay. Dan?
The only thing I would offer by way of a supplement to Councilmember Freeman's report is that he and I are going to try and attend a meeting of the San Juan Committee and try to identify needs, synergies, things that we might be able to help with I think one thing that John and I agreed on is that the city needs a very viable, well-run, efficient business entity organization. If it's going to be the San Juan Committee instead of a San Juan Chamber of Commerce, for example, or what is it going to be? And then once identified, then I think that organization should be officially recognized by the City Council, San Juan Bautista, as being the official business entity, business promotion entity in San Juan, and that we should try to partner with them to support them and help the business community in the way we can. So first things first, we're going to go to a meeting, I think, right, John?
I actually had a meeting with two of them yesterday. I just didn't want to get into that right yet. I met with Bev and Jill yesterday, and we talked about a lot of things.
Okay, good.
And just to follow up, the city's been partnering with the San Juan Committee for the last 3 years with giving them incentives for advertisement and featuring the city of San Juan Bautista. And, you know.
It's been in the budget.
Yeah.
Jim?
LAFCO canceled the meeting in January, so we're going to have a meeting the day after tomorrow.
Fire and intergovernmental?
Fire, the county approved their money for the study and today, and the intergovernmental, God almighty, I can't find my notes. It goes on and on.
Intergovernmental was basically a presentation from the Hollister School.
Where they're going to spend the money.
Yeah, essentially looking at their plans, future plans, primarily with the high school. And they've got a number of big dollar projects in the works, and they don't foresee the need for, I've heard a lot of people talking about a second high school, but it doesn't sound like there's any chance of that happening in the foreseeable future. There doesn't appear to be a need based on the population numbers and the growth.
Well, they've got the thing worked out where they're going to shut down Nash Road and try to get the campus done.
Yeah.
But another high school is like hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah, very expensive, and the programming at Hollister High School is pretty extensive, so they would water that down dramatically if they had to split the school. So. And there just isn't the need from a population growth standpoint. So
because I talked to them, they'll have no water shop, no machine shop, no farm.
Right.
All of that stuff that was built into old high schools wouldn't be if they made a new high school in remote sites.
Right. Okay. That takes us to number 6, public hearing items. The Youth Commission, consider amending Article 2 of Chapter 2-3 of the San Juan Bautista Municipal Code entitled Youth Commission, second reading and approval.
See, because it's a public hearing, you'd want to say now's the time and place for the public hearing, and anybody would like to speak to it. Yeah.
Okay. Do we have any public comment? The public hearing is open.
No cards.
No cards. I'll close the public meeting and take it back to the council. Does anybody have any questions or comments?
I think it's a good idea. It's so hard to get young people involved in the thing, and the fact that they're going to school here, the difference, I think it's a good idea to expand it.
Good.
I know when I was on the Parks and Rec, it was terribly difficult to get kids involved in it, because the kids get involved in their second or the third or fourth year of high school, and they're just running crazy.
Yep.
So as I mentioned at the last city council meeting, they have apparently 2 people from Prunedale who are eager to join, and of course Prunedale's outside of our city limits.
But they're attending Anzar High.
Yes, they attend Anzar High, that's correct. And I had no idea people from Prunedale went to Anzar High.
Yeah. So.
Well, they don't have any other choice.
Well, okay.
Do I hear a motion?
I'd move that we approve this ordinance of the City Council of the City of San Juan Bautista, amending Article 2 of Chapter 2-3 of the San Juan Bautista Municipal Code entitled Youth Commission.
Seconded.
Thank you. Trish?
Councilmember Bach,
Yes.
Councilmember Freeman,
Yes.
Councilmember DeFreeze,
Yes.
Vice Mayor West.
Yes.
Mayor Martirana.
Aye.
All members of the council being present, the motion as stated by the maker passes unanimously. And that's ordinance number 02.
Thank you. Okay, so public hearing items. So we're going to open a public hearing to consider the revocation of design review permit DR 2013-33. Not just yet. Okay. Sorry. For the brewery project, and are you recusing yourself? Thank you, Dan. Okay. Adopt a resolution revoking that HRB-DR 2013-33 CEQA categorical Article 19, Section 15321A. Do we have any public comment?
Mr.
You want to
Mayor,
go?
Yeah.
You want to speak to this?
About a week and a half ago, I got a call from Larry Peterson. He's the attorney representing Mrs. Ippolito, and the judge in the divorce case instructed Mr. Ippolito 20 days from February the 2nd to come up with half of the money to pay off his wife, and then that would settle the divorce settlement and then go. That date is tomorrow, the 22nd.
Right.
And so I would say that we could continue this for another month. Tomorrow Matt and I will be on the phone talking to Mr. Peterson to see if that agreement has concluded. If not, we will then proceed with a revocation of the site design review permit.
Okay. And we would continue it basically so that we don't force with a new owner to start from scratch on the permitting process and devalue the property.
Exactly.
It has more value probably to anybody with that design.
Yes.
Those permits intact. So we know that that's happening apparently tomorrow.
So now we know that something has to be, because the judge ordered it to take place, and so and then it's fairly imminent that something will happen within the next month.
Okay. Anyone object to continuing that item?
No.
Okay, let's continue that to next month. Matt, would you grab Dan for us, please? Okay. Thank you. All right. We'll wait for Councilmember DeVries to return. Okay. So item C, public hearing items, consider approving an ordinance authorizing the implementation of a community choice aggregation program. First reading. Do you have a staff report or anything on this?
Yes, and we have Jenny in the audience here, and we've invited her there to speak and give us a quick review. Yes.
Thank you so much, Mr. Grimsley. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I appreciate the opportunity. I'm Jenny Johnson. I represent Santa Cruz County, which has been your lead partner in this 4-year plus project. Really exciting opportunity for our region. I'm really pleased to come here before you tonight as we're actually making decisions, and I'm going to be going to the City of Hollister here in a few minutes when we're done with your particular public hearing. Just to remind you, members of the public, I do have extra info or fact sheets for members of the public if they would like them. This is a community choice energy project which allows counties and cities to aggregate their purchasing power for the benefit of their electricity users in their region. It is a choice. That means that all of your residents and businesses could choose either to buy their electricity from Monterey Bay Community Power or PG&E, continue with PG&E. It is a partnership with PG&E. That PG&E does continue to do all the customer service, electricity distribution, billing that they're doing now, and of course gas service. It has got both a greenhouse gas reduction renewable energy component. It'll allow our region to meet our 2030 mandated greenhouse gas reduction goals that the state of California said that we all have to meet, which is 50% of our energy from renewable resources. We can meet that by the year 2018, 2020 at most. but usually I think we should actually will be there by the end of even 2017. It also gives us local choice over our rates and where we buy our electricity. And it does provide an economic vitality component, which is extremely exciting for me as a lifelong environmentalist. Anytime you can marry together environmental and good economic policy, which is rare, it's an exciting opportunity because it keeps all the rates local, the money local, and the surplus revenues that Monterey Bay Community Power will be able to collect could go to the benefit of the ratepayers, lowering rates and funding renewable energy projects locally and creating local jobs. So with that, I understand from Mr. Grimsley you've had extensive presentation already, a couple of them. I'm happy to actually give that if you'd like. I came prepared, but I'm also here just to answer your questions.
Dan, you haven't been through this much with
No, but
the rest of us.
I talked with Seth. I talked with Seth for about an hour on Sunday, I think it was, about this, and he kind of walked me through the whole program. So I feel pretty comfortable with the concepts and the principles, and it sounds like it's worth exploring. What I asked Seth was the fiscal impact to the city of San Juan Bautista, and I noted from the staff report that this fiscal impact section was left blank.
Jenny, perhaps could you kind of explain to them the last memo that we got from it, where the county of Monterey and the county of Santa Cruz were going to get an additional seat from the 11, and it created a little bit of kind of confusion of how that share was going to be decided in the terms of there, and it implied that the city of Salinas, county of Monterey, and Santa Cruz were going to pick up the bulk of the set-aside letters that needed to be done.
Credit guarantee.
Yeah, the guarantee, yeah.
Right, so let's talk about the credit guarantee first. So what is it?
Oh, so this does address Dan's question.
It does address Dan's question.
Okay.
So,
Can I interject
Yes.
before you start? And I also understand that there's two separate things that we're talking about right now. The first is what we can refer to as startup costs.
yes,
And then secondly, there's operational ongoing costs.
yes.
So just in terms of the startup costs, what would be the ask or the request to the city of San Juan Bautista fiscally?
Yeah. So just to give you a little bit of context, there was a 4-year process with a regional committee that investigated. Santa Cruz County raised $400,000 so that your general fund wouldn't be impacted and nobody else's general fund would be impacted for the investigation. And the regional committee was comprised of 15 members, and they produced a 300-page report, a technical study that compared rates and renewable energy and so forth, but also what it would take to start up and run this operation if all 21 AMBAG area cities and counties actually joined, which they may not, but we needed to know the big picture. So the startup costs are between $2.5 and $3 million. They would not be coming out of your general fund. It would be a loan, a bank loan, which would get paid back quickly once Monterey Bay Community Power starts to provide electricity to its customers and starts to get revenue back from the customers to pay for that electricity, so that loan will be paid back through those ratepayer revenues. And we've modeled all that and analyzed that and peer reviewed that and know that that's, I can come before you today and be very confident in that claim. So what would be asked of San Juan Bautista is for you to participate in a partial letter of guarantee or letter of credit, not actual cash, but partnering with the seat that you would actually share with the city of Hollister to partner with 1/11 of the startup costs on that bank loan. It would be guaranteed by the county of Santa Cruz primarily, possibly the county of Monterey if they decided to join. They may not. The county of Santa Cruz is ready to and prepared to move forward and guarantee, and I know the county of San Benito approved their participation in their second reading this morning, and they're ready also to assist by working with the bank to guarantee the loan. And what I mean by that is a bank typically doesn't want to deal with 21 partners or even 10, probably 1 or 2 of the bigger ones, and that there could be interagency agreements between your county and San Juan Bautista on your portion of the credit guarantee. You share a seat with Hollister. Each seat, and there's 11 seats on this governing board that, as it's currently being proposed, has one vote. Your shared seat would have 1/11 of the responsibility of the $2.5 to $3 million startup. So that would be, in theory, something under $300,000 guaranteed and split between your two cities. Now, how you exactly negotiate that with your county or your fellow city, Hollister, as to what your participation in is on that, that would be an interagency agreement between you and the county and Hollister. That 11 seat, so did I answer your question?
I think so. Let me say back.
150,000.
Yeah, thank you.
Approximately.
135-ish, if at most, 140-ish, half a percent. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the ongoing, and I'm happy to answer.
That's not what I was going to ask.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay.
So it's a 1/11 share letter of credit between City of San Juan Bautista and the City of Hollister.
Correct.
And as to that 1/11 share, whatever that amount may be, it's up to us then to negotiate an allocation of that 1/11 as between us and the City of Hollister.
Yes, you could do that. That would be up
So
to
if
you.
we wanted to have it to be, if we wanted that allocation to have some parity in revenues or budgets or population or something, so that they would pay the greater share of the 1/11, we'd be free to do that.
You absolutely. That's between
Yeah.
you and that does
Sorry.
make some sense given the size, right? So you also asked for, and actually the exact amount of the bank loan will be predicated on the number of cities and counties that come to the table. So if not all 21 do, and we don't think that all 21 will, we've already been told no by San City, they're not interested. There might be some others that may not decide they want to move forward. This has happened. There's 6 established community choice energy agencies in the state of California, and typically they've been established in one county and their cities within that county. This would be the first multi-county community choice energy agency. So it's a little bit of a challenge to put it together. I said all that because essentially of those other established ones, not all their cities joined initially. Right, so the county usually took the lead, but they came along and they could on-ramp later. So we don't expect all 21 from 3 counties to come forward. That politically probably isn't realistic, but they might. So if they did, it would be $3 million. If they didn't, it would be closer to $2 million.
Right.
And so that would be 1/11 of that.
Okay.
And you asked about ongoing operations. So yes, depending on the size of the agency, we expect 80 to 85% participation rate of the customers in that area, those cities and county areas. That's based on history of the other established and successful community choice energy agencies. And so 80-85% of, let's say, 15 or 16 of our counties, roughly, the ones that are really interested, that they've said they're interested, then we would need some ongoing operations of something like $10-15 million to go out annually to go out and procure, or initially, to go out and procure electricity for those customers. And we would get that in the form of a line of credit, which would not burden the city of San Juan Bautista at all, because the JPA would be on the line for the line of credit. There's a legal firewall between Monterey Bay Community Power, JPA, and your city for both assets and liabilities. And so why would a bank want to give Monterey Bay Community Power line of credit to procure energy?
Right.
Because this is
Without
a very...
collateral.
Right. We have a very well-established, proven business model with the other proven and established community choice energy agencies who have demonstrated to the banks of the state of California that this is a very low-risk proposition for them, and that they know that because of ratepayer revenues and participation, that it's a very reasonable and low-risk loan to make. So that's how that works. And then once you start to actually get revenues, ratepayer revenues coming into the agency, there's no longer a need for the line of credit. It might be there, but it would be paid off for other needs. And eventually you have surplus revenues somewhere between $8 to $10 million annually, which would be amassed by your JPA, your Monterey Bay Community Power JPA, and those revenues would be used for ongoing operations, lowering rates, complementary programs, local projects, that type of thing.
So it becomes self-sustaining at some point.
It's always self-sustaining.
What's the time frame for it from?
Less than 2 years, we've analyzed, but based on the amount of participation, it'll probably be less than a year. And by the way, your part of the credit guarantee, your letter, whatever portion that is, that gets retired as soon as we pay back the loan, which we'll do very quickly.
Right.
So.
I might add that the city of Lancaster has their own CC, is it E or A? I can't remember which.
They're both. It's both.
And they just started up in 2014, and they paid back their entire loan startup costs within a year and a half to the banks. And so now they're operating in the clear, in the black, making money, putting it back into the community of Lancaster. You may or may not know that Lancaster is one of 3 cities that requires all new construction to have PV panels installed on any new project. And so the CE there provides a very different model than PG&E does. PG&E caps what you generate, or what they'll pay for what you generate. You might generate much more power. PG&E won't give you anything for it, or very little. This model allows you to get more money.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman, and I will add that that's been the experience of Marin Clean Energy, Sonoma Clean Power, which after 2.5 years of operations is 80% greenhouse gas free in their portfolio. They serve 89% of the customers. They have $50 million in the bank. You didn't hear me wrong. They are booking somewhere between $1 and $2 million a month in surplus revenues. They were, up until 2 weeks ago, 9% below PG&E rates. They now just lowered their rates again by 10%. So really exciting. And the part of the Sonoma's success story that's most exciting for me is that they have been paying those solar generators, as you just indicated, Mr. Freeman, especially schools who have oversized their solar systems. They've been paying it back into the community, and they wrote checks for $900,000 last year. $200,000 went to local schools for generating more than they needed to use. So it's just become your rooftop. If you're a government institution or a private property owner or a business, becomes a revenue generator for you, in essence.
And Mr. Mayor, just as an add is that both Jim West and I have sat with the city of Hollister and have given them a proposal of sharing, our 1/11th of it based on a population ratio, based on a budget ratio and stuff. And we've planted a seed with them, and they're considering that. So it looks very promising.
That's because Roger calmed me down when I was at the meeting. The initial responsibility for this town was $8,000. And it went from $8,000 to $160,000. At which point I said, we're not in this. We love it, but we can't afford it because...
It's just a letter of credit. We don't have to pay cash.
Yeah, no, I know.
If you should go to Las Vegas if you think
that's
a good idea. Because a letter of credit is an indebtedness.
I know.
Yeah. And in addition there is that we had a good conversation with the county CAO, and they said that if the city had a hard time coming up with a letter of credit, that they would assist us as we need. And so here we got both the county as well as the city of Hollister being very cooperative in
And so just, again, I think I said this, but I actually got a phone call to step out a little while ago from Maria Espinoza, your CEO of your county. And this morning, on consent, they did their second reading of their ordinance. And they're very excited and enthusiastic about this. It is, after all, your county and your cities that are going to have the most possibility of job creation under this program, because you've got affordable land, you've got the opportunity to put up renewable energy projects. And so this is a good opportunity to tell you that your city, your county, and City of Hollister retain land use authority. This JPA will not come in and force you to build anything that you can't build, that you don't have to approve right now. So assured you. Now, Mr. Grimsley asked me to go over the governance kerfuffle. That's what I'm going to call it. Kerfuffle. That's a good word, isn't it? Oh, yeah. But that's what's going on. So again, we had a regional committee that guided this process for the last 4.5 years. That committee delivered its product to all of you in the form of a 300-page report. It's online if you want to read it, but I don't want to bore you to tears. We did peer review the technical study, so the numbers that we're giving you, that we know you can double your renewable energy on rate parity, we know that we're very confident in those numbers. And I'm real excited about that possibility. So in it was last May that product got delivered, and we did a number of special study sessions. Mr. West and Mr. Grimsley went to several ad hoc committee meetings, which was great. And we wanted to educate both the decision makers, the community. These were all public meetings. And then the executive staff, including Mr. Grimsley, participated in, and Mr. West, executive staff level attorney meetings to negotiate the JPA governance agreement. We were very fortunate, our regional committee, to have a lot of coaching and a lot of help from Sonoma and Marin and the other community choice energy agencies, including Lancaster. They were very generous with their time and their legal expertise. And they made some really good recommendations to us about what to do and what not to do, because they were the first before us, right? And so they recommended to try to not keep your board too big. This is, after all, a different kind of government agency. You are more of an enterprise, more of an innovator, and you need to be able to be fluid and flexible to be able to respond to the energy marketplace fluctuations and other kinds of challenges. And so you really need not a huge board. All due respect to AMBAG, and it works very, very well, but the nature of AMBAG is a planning agency, and for us to have a 21-member board, we were advised that probably wouldn't be a great idea. Marin ruse the day that they formed a 19-member board. And if you actually pay a fee to get into Marin Clean Energy now, you can't get a seat on the board. It's too big. That is always an option for folks. So the best management practices and the JPA agreement that was negotiated through the process that these gentlemen participated in was an 11-member board on which there would be 5 permanent seats for each of the cities and counties that had more than 50,000 population, and then the rest of the seats would be shared, or 5 seats for shared city seats. And the county of San Benito was at first going to share a seat with its 2 cities because of population. But the San Benito County came to one of those meetings and said, we're a county, we have a lot of land, we would really want a seat at the table, we feel that's justified. And the group agreed. They said, yeah, you're a county, that makes a lot of sense. And then County of Monterey said, we would like to have another vote. We don't need another, first they wanted another seat, and the group I'm talking about is your executive staff and attorneys. And Selena said, yeah, we want to go along with that, we want another seat. And the group said, no, we're trying to keep it to 11 to 13 members. And we just increased it from 10 to 11, getting the County of San Benito, who's a great partner, a seat. It makes lots of sense to us. But we don't need to have one particular county or group. We want this to be a regional collaborative, and we want to make decisions that are for the benefits of the ratepayers in the region. And we don't want to politicize a revenue-generating agency. It's a little bit different, right? Not the normal agency. So we took a straw poll. This was after several meetings. It was discussed between September and December. And mid-December, the straw poll was 18 cities and counties were in the room at the time, and 14 said, no, we don't really want to do that extra voting, and 4 said yes. And just full disclosure, my assistant CEO said yes. He was one that said yes, but it didn't roll. And so Santa Cruz County, as your lead partner, said, we respect the will of the group. Everyone's a partner in this group, and if any individual city or county should flex their muscle, it could be Santa Cruz County. We've raised all the money, we did all the work. We actually spent several $100,000 of our own staff time besides the money we raised. But we won't do that because we respect our partners, and if that's what our partners want, we're going with it. If in fact this JPA board moves forward with its 11-member membership, with the 5 permanent seats and the 6 shared seats, it gives cities all around the region a lot more representation. And if the JPA board wants to change that model, they can vote to do that and take it back to our members for them to vote on. And that made sense to us. But subsequently, Monterey County last week voted on a 3-2 vote to continue to press the issue on the second vote. I just want you to know, as I stand here before you, that tonight the city of Hollister will likely be the third second reading of the ordinance, which means we, gentlemen and ladies, have a JPA. Legal JPA has been formed, a legal entity. We invite you to come with us because even though Santa Cruz County's board has not taken action on this, I assure you, they will, and all of our cities will approve this. 2 of our cities already have and have done their second reading. So we are very close to this formation as it's going down the pike. We want to seat a board in April, and we hope that you're there because you're important to us. Certainly your county is there, and we're hoping that Hollister will be there as well. We feel they will be. So if this idea of the weighted voting can be considered again, which is it's not a completely unreasonable request considering the County of Monterey, the City of Salinas, and the County of Santa Cruz each have 100,000 or more population. That said, you're all good partners, or you're a good partner, and we would like to form this board and then have it consider a revision if necessary. The community choice energy agencies that are successful have done Marin's done 9 revisions to their JPA agreement. Well, they were the first out of the gate, so they sort of didn't get it right first. Sonoma's done a few. So it's not impossible to do revisions to a JPA agreement, if it's acceptable to the group.
So by my count, Monterey County at the present time, has 5 seats, Santa Cruz County has 4 seats, and San Benito County has 2 seats. And that's the count.
Correct, Mr. Freeman.
And so
they already have a majority.
Yeah, I don't see why. I think it's just 3 people whining and complaining, but that's just my opinion.
I couldn't use those words, but
I can't.
Well, you know, it's interesting, as your regional committee, your project development advisory committee, looked at a lot of different JP models. They looked at the existing CCEs, which were 1 seat for each municipality, like AMDAC, and then they looked at a lot of different models. And the model that they landed on was our air quality control district. You're a part of that, Rich Stedman's organization. In fact, he was part of the committee. And we said we really like an 11 to 13 member model. It feels like it's workable, it's manageable, but you know something we don't like is the counties dominate that board. They've got more seats than anybody. We think that the smaller cities deserve more representation. So we said, okay, let's go to this population-based, over 50,000, you get a permanent seat, and folks who are sort of in geographical, common, they'll share a seat. That just feels like the cities get a lot more representation.
Okay. Any more questions here? No?
Ready for the question?
How about any public comment? Trish, any cards?
Yeah.
Questions from the public? No? Okay. Okay. So we have, I'm a little confused. We have an ordinance under public hearing items, and then under action items, we have a resolution.
It's
Correct?
actually 2 different distinct actions, although it would be really lovely if at the pleasure of the council, you could take one action after the other. The ordinance is required by state law, which is, and then you have to have 2 readings, so that right now we're talking about the first reading ordinance. And then the JPA agreement itself, which is what we've been negotiating at the executive level, that's actually the agreement among the partners of the JPA.
Okay, so that's the action item B.
Correct.
Is a resolution approving the JPA. Got it. Okay. So, back to the council.
Well, I thought it was a great, I still think it's a great idea. And in spite of John's input, I think that I don't want to put a letter of credit out for $160,000 that could have to be, it's a financial responsibility from the citizens of this town. I don't want to do that. But as long as, and I don't care about having I'm not worried about a place at the chair. We have a place at the chair. But I'd like to do it, and I think when I talked with Ray and I talked with Clower, and I think we won't have to do that. I'd like to support it, but I'd like to put that limit of, what is the smaller limit on that?
15,000? 15,000.
Yeah. I would not want to support it if we had to go to the 150. I can't find it.
And what I would say, recommend is because of the ordinance is an introduction. You're introducing and read by title only. You won't adopt it until then at the next meeting.
That's where my head was at.
Yeah, right. Is between the introduction and the adoption is that we solidify with the county of San Benito and the city of Hollister of what their share is going to be. We've given them 3 options.
And they responded positively to that.
To there, yeah.
Great.
But we don't have a bird in the hand or a signed side agreement and everything like that.
But what I don't like is that we give up representation under option B and C. I personally think that anybody on this council, God, this is going to be a hard statement to say, I shouldn't say it, it has a higher IQ than the Halls council. There, I said it. So,
you weren't looking at me when you said that.
Oh, yes, I was. and I think any one of us could do a much better job than the Hollister people at representing the needs of our towns and San Bernardino County at the JPA. But so be it.
And again, that could be part of the negotiations, Mr. Freeman, when we meet with the city to find out that equitable split as well as the county, because I know they're not hard and fast about who's going to go, but right now, if it's a 50-50 split, they would share in that seat 1 year and would share the next seat. And there could be a combination of any number one of those arrangements.
And I also just get tired of poor me saying, well, sometimes we just have to step up and be a big boy.
Yeah, but don't forget, we have 2,000 people, they have 36,000
I
people.
know.
They have to go back to their own constituents and say, we put your money on the table, but we don't have the representation.
A pro rata allocation is just equitable. That's
Yeah,
just reasonable
yeah.
and equitable, and we should not have to give up a seat in order to
I
get it.
think we get a prorated seat,
Right.
whatever the financial thing
I
is.
don't see how that can work.
Yeah.
It'd shave a person in half or, come on. Anyway.
We're going to pay our fair share and give a seat.
You mean pay the $160,000?
No.
we're
Option B. I agree with you.
Well, then,
Option
but
B. And
no
keep our seat.
councilman on Hollister is going to say, we let them get off at 10%, but they get a 50% representation.
Well, you have to justify the allocation, though.
Mr. Mayor, if I might, I know you're having
Sure.
but I thought I could illuminate a little bit here. So the city of Seaside approved this the other night, and they capped their credit guarantee participation. So you can do that as part of this action or even the next action, just so that you know. They did that. They said, this is how much we're willing to do. And I think they capped it at 175. They're sharing a seat with 2 others. And so they thought that was a reasonable amount because the others haven't heard the item yet. So that seemed reasonable. I will also say that there's a 2-year term for what's the policy board, the JP board, but there will be a technical advisory committee, and actually there's a very robust committee structure. So even if you were not sitting in that seat for a term, you would be able to have representation. You wouldn't be muted. You would have a voice and you would have representation. And it is a regional public hearing body. So we're not going to be go up to Santa Cruz centric. No, we're not going to do that. We'll probably be in the Marina Library, to tell you the truth, because that seems appropriate. And you would have a voice to come there as well, in addition to the committee structure. So I don't know if that helps, but
I don't know. I don't know if it does or
There's lots of
not.
ways to have a voice. So.
Tony, any thoughts?
Well, again, Hollister, I think that every other year type of thing, and I don't know if they would have a problem with that or not. It's something to throw out. We'll go with option B and tell Hollister that we want to alternate the seat.
And Hollister will say, if you want half, you pay half.
Well, you don't know. You don't know what.
I think that
Why wouldn't they? They have a responsibility to their voters.
We've got 2 incorporated cities. The reason why we get half is we're an incorporated city in the county of San Bernardino.
Then they will expect us to pay half the amount of money.
But that's not fair based on equity. They look at our budgets
Well-
and our populations.
I think it's,
The thing
I think
is-
something
wait.
is that this is part of the negotiations.
Right,
And
exactly.
I think that's productive, and
Yeah.
Dan's got some good ideas, and I think that has to get in front of the table amongst that to solidify that.
correct. Tony?
Again, as I say, it's a negotiating point.
Right.
Okay. When I saw that number, $159,000, there's no way that's going to happen. But as they've shown, the other JPAs that have done this, they haven't even had to basically use this letter of credit. We're just guaranteeing to the bank that if everything goes in the
But we are guaranteed. We are
right,
putting
if
the
everything
city
goes in the
at
toilet,
financial
we're
risk.
going to come up with
are.
159,000 or 15,000 or 31,000. I mean, so my suggestion would be that we approve this,
At what level?
option B,
Okay,
and
I would agree.
a seat every other year at the table, all right? And then, at least then we're on board. We've first reading of the ordinance, whatever you want to call it. Then we knew, if Hollister, hey, they might not even notice what we're doing.
Well, they've talked about that, and they've expressed their concern.
Well,
Well,
just tell them, hey, that's the way it goes. I would like to be in this thing.
I would like to be in it. And when we first started, it was $8,000, the
Yeah, but-
credit.
Well,
And the additional too is we haven't even interfaced with the county, and Ray has expressed a very cooperative, and, you know, so.
Okay.
and I think we could at least sway our supervisor to our side of the table.
Yeah.
It's already there.
Yeah.
Okay, so I agree. I don't think we should, I think we should move ahead with it as it stands. I don't think we should put the limitation in there at this point in terms of the reading at this point.
So the financial,
That's my input.
so you would do it
But
at 156,000?
I would,
No, I think
it doesn't have that number in here.
What he's saying is that
You're not talking-
introduce it, but then
Correct.
we have the next 30 days to
We have the next 30
negotiate
days to
before
negotiate
the
it.
approval.
And if we're not comfortable with it at that point, then we're able to not, that we can vote it down or make other changes, or make other arrangements as necessary.
Because
That
you're
would
going to
be-
have a fair number of people asking you why you didn't let them have lower PG&E bills, so you know, right?
John, we're
Yeah.
a little ways
Yeah.
away from that point, I think.
Yeah.
Mr.
I
Mayor,
think
if
it's
I
just-
might, one clarifying comment. I apologize, Mr. Grimsley. I just want to let you know that the JPA agreement that you're about to consider in a moment does specify 2-year term limits, or 2-year terms for the board members rather than every other year.
Gotcha.
And there's a reason for that. You actually need to develop some pretty solid institutional knowledge
Good.
to help make decisions, so.
So it's not an every year back and forth.
It's every 2 years when you pass the hat around. I just want to make sure you understand.
Talking about what level.
Okay, thank you.
Exactly.
All right.
Yeah.
I'd like to make the motion.
Introduced by, and read
Introduce
by
for the
title.
first reading. Ordinance number would be
We don't set that
Give
at
it
this
the number
point.
next time.
No,
We don't do the number yet.
Okay, and then an ordinance of the City Council of the City of San Juan Bautista authorizing implementation of a community choice aggregate program.
Second.
Trish?
Councilmember Bach?
Yes.
Councilmember Freeman?
Yes.
Councilmember DeFreeze? Vice Mayor West?
Yes.
Mayor Marciano?
Aye.
All members of the council being present, the motion is stated by the maker passes unanimously.
Thank you.
And the next one would be the resolution.
Yeah, I'd like to, we'll take up action item
Can we take a break?
7B. Well, are we going to have a lot of discussion on this, do we think?
Which is that?
I think you need to get to the Hollister meeting, do you not?
Well, that would be lovely, but I'm
Okay.
here.
Let's,
to answer your
Jim,
questions.
can you give it a couple of minutes?
What?
We're trying to get her out the door.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
So,
I thought you was done. I'm sorry, I
action
thought we
item,
were going to vote. Oh, that's
we've
right.
got
The
one more
resolution.
item.
The resolution.
So under action item 7B, the Monterey Bay Community Power Authority Joint Powers Agreement, consider resolution approving the Joint Powers Agreement, establishing the Monterey Bay Community Power Authority, authorizing the City Council to execute the agreement on behalf of the city. I think that probably, on behalf of the City of San Juan Bautista, and adopting California Environmental Quality Act exemption findings.
And that does not.
And then a letter of credit. Is the letter of credit attached, or is that something that's going to be, it's listed on here, but I don't think I saw
It's on
that.
the agenda, Roger, did you want that on there? It should have been. One of the items under this item is II, letter of
7B.
credit.
So
Will
that-
that be determined at this point?
It will be determined, yes. Not at this point.
You're right, okay. Next time.
Yeah.
So that's not before us.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. So, joint powers, there we go. Okay. Any discussion on this particular item with the council?
Can I open the public hearing?
I am going to look for public comment.
No, well, it just follows along with what we just did.
Okay. Any public comment? No? Okay. Anyone else? Any other questions regarding this? No? No? Okay. And do I hear a motion?
Is this for the resolution number? Is there a number on that one?
Yes, 4.
Oh, 4. A resolution of the City Council of the City of San Juan Bautista, California, approving a joint powers agreement establishing the Monterey Bay Community Power MBCP Authority, authorizing the mayor to execute the agreement on behalf of the City of San Juan Bautista and adopting California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA exemption findings.
Second.
Councilmember Bach?
Yes.
Councilmember Freeman?
Yes.
Councilmember DeFreeze?
Yes.
Vice Mayor West?
Yes.
Mayor Martirana?
Aye.
All members of the council being present, the motion is stated by the maker passes unanimously.
Thank you. I will see you, gentlemen and ladies, in a month.
Thank you very much.
That's when the fighting starts.
And now, we'll take a
Over 50 break. Thank you.
50 break. Is there guidelines for when I get to bang my gavel? Calling the meeting to order. We're back in session.
county either because we don't
have people. Back in session. So we are now on to action items, and we come to 7A, the Copperleaf subdivision project. Information requested by Councilmember DeVries, and consider resolution approving the final map of the Copperleaf subdivision tract number 337 together with subdivision agreement in accordance with the San Juan Bautista Municipal Code Chapter 10-2, sequel compliance adopted mitigated negative declaration resolution 2016-31 and 2016-57. Roger. We have a lot of paper.
Yes, it is.
The first one is that I think Councilman DeVries asked for a lot of details, and I tried to develop a package so that we would have the necessary reports that can give you. And the summary would be is that we wanted the staff report of the September 6, 2016 commission meeting, and then the section on the 10/20/9/30, which would be the action on the final map. And then our traffic report by the Hatchmont McDonald Company that was submitted as part of the tentative map application for Copperleaf. And then the current impact fees is summarized. Then we summarize the economic analysis, which would be all the projects, Rancho Vista, the D'Ambrosio, as well as the Copperleaf, the economic impact. And then I prepared a revenue analysis per person, kind of highlighted each segment of our revenue stream for property tax, sales tax, vehicle license, registration, utilities, and the resolution 216-57 that was adopted, declaring the tentative map approved. In the Robert Food and Water Subdivision Map Act, Section 66452.4, and Subdivision Map Act 66452.1. My engineering estimate of the roundabout, intersection improvement, and then our analysis of cost of the roundabout and how we arrived at that 12%.
Okay. So Dan, do you have questions on this material? Discussion here?
Yeah.
Okay.
I do. When would you like me to do that, now?
Yeah, it's next up, so I guess we should dive right in.
What's next up?
Your information that you
Response
requested.
to that? Okay. Well, okay, let's talk about just impact fees. I'm not interested in gas tax and property tax and things like that. But City of San Juan Bautista impact fees. First, let me ask this question. Our municipal code, section 3-8-110, and the sections that follow, every one of these impact fees states that it is to be set by the City Council in resolution adopted after a duly noticed public hearing. So I guess I'm curious, when is that duly noticed public hearing supposed to take place? Is this supposed to be it? And if so, how are these fees determined?
The public hearing was held back in 2012. It was adopted by resolution.
These fees were?
These fees, yes.
But that's not in the packet then, right? The resolution setting the fees?
We can look up the resolution number.
You said 2012?
2012.
Okay. Because, for example, I noticed the traffic fee was
17, yes.
17 per lot, and then this Nexus study that Tony was nice enough to bring tonight from COG says that the new proposed fee is $2,200 per lot.
That is correct. Now, part of the problem when we adopted that is that originally they had us in Zone 1, which was the city of Hollister, and our impact fees were much higher because it was part of widening 25. And we petitioned COG to say we should be in Zone 3, which most of our traffic leaves San Juan and goes to Salinas or north to San Jose out of the So then that zone was adopted as our influence. Current mitigation fee, impact fee that you'll see, also includes City of San Juan in that same zone. Okay? And it went to, 2356 or something like that. We have not approved that yet because we haven't gone through our nexus and to approve it. And we're preparing that justification very similar to what COG did so that we can adopt the new impact fee for transportation needs.
Because here's the zone map in the COG handout. So you said you petitioned to get Zone 3?
Zone 2.
Zone 2?
Zone 2, yeah.
To get out of Zone 2.
Originally it was Zone 1, 2, and 3, and we petitioned to eliminate and get us into Zone 3. But maybe it's Zone 2. Right?
No, we're going into Zone 1.
Zone 1?
Yeah.
Maybe it was Zone 3 and Zone 1.
Zone 3 is all South County.
Yeah. Yeah.
Here, right, Tony? Zone 1 here?
Yeah, right here.
Okay. So yeah, so
in the map there, Exhibit 2 is Zone 1, San Juan is in Zone 1.
right,
Originally, we were in Zone 2.
right.
Yeah.
And they show the proposed changes.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so I was right. So Zone 1, 2254 per lot, and we're only getting 17, and that's because these were adopted in 2012 by resolution.
Yes.
Well, was the resolution that did that set the fee, or did it say the fees then applicable at the time of issuance of the building permit? Because they don't have a development.
The resolution says is that all these fees are applicable on the issuance of a building permit.
Right. So in other words, they didn't enter into a development agreement.
Correct.
So therefore, since there's no development agreement, and you explained to us last time, one of the benefits to a development agreement is that it can lock fees in, so that 1,700 is not locked in then, correct? It can be the higher amount?
Yeah, that's a tentative now.
So it's the fees, it's the fees that were in, the impact fees that were in effect at the time of the vesting of the tentative map?
Yes, at the time, that's why you do a vesting tentative map.
And that was deemed automatically approved?
Yes.
So it'd be the fees that were applicable then? What fees were applicable, what traffic input, where did all these fees come from?
The calculation is set forth in resolution from 2012.
Right, and I just asked whether that resolution states that the fees then in effect at the time you say vesting tentative map, which is automatically approved, so it'd be the fees, the impact fees that were set at that time.
Correct.
Okay. And the resolution, this 2012 resolution will explain how these fees were calculated, the per lot fee?
The fees have to be, there's the Fee Mitigation Act of 1974, and the way the fees are calculated has to be consistent with that act.
Right. But like, for example, a park fee, where did the park impact fee come from?
It was developed through an analysis by the County Commission and City Council, identifying the future needs of parks in the city of San Juan Bautista.
Okay. Well, I'm kind of hamstrung without seeing that ordinance and seeing what the fees are, so,
That's what they were.
yeah,
What
but
are you questioning?
I don't know where they came from.
They came from that resolution.
I don't have the
What-
resolution, that's what I
Well,
just said.
hey, you should have done your homework.
It's been fairly...
I was on the council at that time. We did a nexus study, planning commission, city council, and we agreed the fees actually were quite a bit higher at that time, but they were not justified.
That's
These
what-
fees were justified.
That's why I just said I'm hamstrung without seeing that ordinance, and I,
What's the relevance to the question before us at this point? What's the relevance?
because it's in the report as requesting a final approval, and I asked for an economic analysis. This is a part of the economic analysis. You asked me to respond to that, so I'm responding, where did these numbers come from?
Okay.
That's the relevance.
So what's the relevance of the determination from 2012? I'm not sure what bearing that has on today.
Because the statement is that these fees were set by resolution in 2012.
Right, so are you disbelieving that?
No, I don't have it. How can I disbelieve something I don't have?
Well, that's why I think everybody's a little surprised, because
What?
that you're questioning this at this point. It just seems, I'm not sure where this is going and what the point
It's the
is.
same fees that applied on every subdivision since 2012.
Right.
It applies to the Rancho Rancho Vista subdivision, the D'Ambrosio subdivision, the minor subdivision on San Antonio. Every minor subdivision as well as major subdivisions were subscribed to these fees
Okay.
since that time.
Okay, great. And I didn't know that, right? I didn't know that in 2012 fees were established and so forth. So now I know that, and I'll have to get that subsequently.
What was precipitated this is that when the previous city manager established the fees, she took the lump sum, $11 million, and added it to the water and sewer collectively without breaking it out to 55%. And she adopted that. And when I discovered it, and there was never an analysis, she just did it as a directive, and then they had adopted that. And there was no nexus, there was no justification, there was no built-out plans for it and everything, and so we rejected that. And when I talked with Deborah's other partner, he says, you better go back and do the analysis.
Yeah.
And so I broke that feedback down into the 55-45 split, according to the way the bonds were purchased in the certificate of participation.
Yeah, no, you have to justify them, otherwise they're susceptible to attack, so I'll get that information later. So that's my response to the economic information that Mr. Grimsley provided.
That's all you want to cover on that?
On that, yeah.
On that packet of information?
Well, this packet of information runs the whole gamut, so are you asking for me to make all my comments now, all of my comments?
Well,
Respond to
this
that?
is the item on the agenda. I think this is the time to discuss it. If there's discussion, this is the time.
Public hearing first.
The next item is the resolution approving the final map. Do you want to discuss it after the final map discussion?
Well, no, I guess I can do it now.
Should you do public hearing first, maybe, before you start a discussion? I mean, usually it's question and answer period for the council, and you send it out to the public, and then you bring it back for discussion.
Well, what we're looking at is the information that was provided to Councilmember DeVries at this point. So,
So you're good. What's the answer to the city attorney's question? Are you going to do public comment, or you want me to continue?
So I assume that you were starting the item, you're at final subdivision map copperleaf
well, the
issue.
first...
And so I understand you asked Mr. DeVries if he had any questions about the packet, and he said no. So I was just making the comment, if you were going to go into this item, then you should have city council questions on this item, then put it to the public, then come back for discussion.
Okay. Any other questions then on the information provided? No. Okay. Then I will open it for public comment. Do we have any speaker cards?
Yeah. I'm the public, obviously.
Sure.
David Medeiros, I live on 1026 First Street. If the city council is going to be asking questions, as a public member or citizen of the San Juan Bautista, I'd like to understand in the questions being asked, why is the question being asked? Can we understand what that is being said first, instead of going through a whole bunch of questions that the rest of us don't know it's clueless. So if there's a specific question that needs to be asked, please justify that question for the public to comment on it if need be. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Dave. Seeing no other comments from the public, we'll take it back to the council. Jim?
I had no questions on any of this.
Okay. John?
I don't have any questions. I have some complaints and comments.
Go right ahead.
Okay.
I'm sorry, let me interrupt for one moment. So we're now talking about the resolution, this is all of this material, including the resolution for the approval of the final map.
Yes.
Okay, just so we're all clear. Go ahead, John.
So we've been told over and over again that we can't do this because operation of law, blah, 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 blah. We've had attorney after attorney. And my response to that is that the Planning Commission didn't know. Okay, and there was, I would like to call it administrative malfeasance, in that they did not know, they were not told, and they were left hanging. And we're left hanging with a project that nobody has approved. No one in this room has approved this project, other than the developers. Okay. So, you know, we're kind of left, you know, in a hard place, because, you know, the last attorney said the only reason we can overturn the map is for fraud, basically, and I'm, you know, I don't have any proof that's occurred, so I can't really make that claim. But there certainly was a string of coincidences that just don't really add up in my mind, or maybe they do add up in the wrong way.
Yeah.
You know, so so the question I want to ask now is, how can we do this better? You know, and so I have asked certain planning commissioners to always ask of city administration, what's the timeline on the MAP Act? Anytime anything comes up to them, so that they're not going to be confused ever again, at least under my watch.
And that's one of the reasons we suggested to go to the classes, and we also suggested that there always be an attorney at a planning commission meeting.
And I completely agree, yes.
I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's quite all right. I enjoy your interruptions. Anyway. So that's it.
Okay. Tony?
I have no comment other than that I suggested that when a subdivision map, when a difficult situation comes up, that the city attorney be present at the planning commission meeting. I don't think they have to be there for 3 signs or some, you know, minor things. If it's a subdivision, I would like to see the city attorney there, possibly, but in reviewing what happened at the planning commission, no, not one of those commissioners made a motion to deny this map, period. And according to everything we've got and the additional attorney we paid to review it, it's a done deal.
Okay. Dan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I read with interest the memo from Brian Winter at Miller Star. I don't think it really said anything new. I looked at the government code sections cited by the applicant's counsel and by Miller Star and by the city attorney, and for the following reasons, I do not think that it's appropriate for the City of San Juan Bautista City Council to approve the final map. I'm going to make a motion that we disapprove the final map. And it's based on California government, amongst other things, it's based upon California Government Code Section 66458 that says that the City Council may only approve the final map if it conforms to all requirements of this chapter and any local subdivision ordinance applicable at the time of approval. Quote, if the map does not conform, again, to local subdivision ordinances, the legislative body shall disapprove the map. A corollary statute to that is California Government Code Section 66473, which states that a final map shall be disapproved only for failure to meet or perform requirements which were applicable to the subdivision at the time of approval of the tentative map. So therefore, the question becomes not only is it consistent with the tentative map, which I agree there's abundant authority to suggest it's ministerial duty, the city engineer has a lot of authority in that respect, etc. But the other question is, did this, at the time this tentative map was automatically approved, did it comply with local subdivision ordinances? It is my opinion that it did not. Specifically, the subdivision ordinance that was not even mentioned once in the staff report or in any of the planning commission hearings or any of the documents that I've been provided to date is any consideration of San Juan Bautista Municipal Code Section 11-09, inclusionary housing. San Juan Bautista's inclusionary housing ordinance states that the chapter shall apply, that's mandatory language, to all residential projects of 6 units or more. This obviously, therefore, is applicable. It also states that when applied, for sale residential units, or let me state it verbatim, no for sale residential project of 6 or more units, subject to this chapter, shall be approved unless one such housing unit is reserved for sale to very low or low-income households, or reserved as rental units for very low or low-income households for each 5 units of market-rate housing. So therefore, at 45, just counting the single-family lots, 9 of the units should have been reserved for low or very low income, according to San Juan Ordinance 11-09. There was some mention last time when I asked if there had been an analysis by the city as to whether this project complied with 1109. The answer was yes, because of the secondary units. Nowhere in 1109 does it state that secondary units may qualify as affordable inclusionary housing. If one were to say that those were rentals or going to be rentals, well, there's a section that applies to rentals only, and that's section B, 11-09-400B, reservation of rental units. Again, one affordable unit is reserved for very low or low-income households for each 5 units of market-rate housing. So if there's 9 secondary units, that means at least one of them should have been so reserved to be compliant with the San Juan Ordinance. Again, there was no mention of this anywhere in the staff report. There was no condition of approval stating that. There's nothing requiring compliance with 11-09, which is mandatory. It's not discretionary. This council has no discretion to ignore the San Juan Ordinance. What the fatal flaw is that nowhere as a condition of approval is there compliance with 11-09 5, which requires that a deed restriction covenant and/or other instrument enforceable by the city and approved by the city attorney, limiting the resale of such units to eligible, very low or low-income households shall be recorded against the title of all reserve units. That's a mandatory requirement. It should have been a mandatory condition of approval. Since it's not even addressed, it's nowhere to be found. I do not find that this project, as proposed, complies with the local subdivision ordinance 11-09, inclusionary housing. Therefore, I do not feel it's appropriate for the city council to approve the final map. And when there is an appropriate time, I would therefore move to disapprove the final map with the finding that is required by section 66473 of the Government Code, which states that provided further, such disapproval shall be accompanied by a finding identifying the requirement or conditions which have not been met or performed. So the finding that I would propose is a failure to even acknowledge, much less incorporate or comply with San Juan Bautista Municipal Code 11-09, inclusionary housing. Those are my comments.
Okay. Opens up a big can of worms.
I
have a question to the city attorney.
Yeah, I'd like to get...
Is that a valid ordinance?
John?
Okay. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Deborah, would you address this for us?
Yes, your inclusionary housing ordinance is a valid ordinance. And I think you need to hear from the developer as to how that was addressed in their project. And furthermore, I just want to note that the time to bring this up would have been at the hearing on the subdivision, on the tentative subdivision map act. You don't really have authority to question the way that the conditions were put in, and you have the city engineer who has said, you know, under his authority as a city engineer, that the conditions were all fulfilled. So I would advise you perhaps listen to the developer as to how that inclusionary ordinance, housing ordinance was addressed.
But the law says shall.
Right.
It's a mandatory regulation, correct?
There is no debate that inclusionary housing is required from this project.
So is anything that was certified by the city engineer, does that have any bearing on this? He's not, is in the certification from the city engineer, does it address this ordinance or this 1109? Because it's not a condition of approval we're talking about. Maybe I'm not stating this very clearly, but.
So I'm not as eloquent in discussion about this project and about the inclusionary housing, but I believe there is fulfillment of the inclusionary housing ordinance by the provision of 9 units of low income to moderate income housing.
How are we assured? I think the issue is that there's no assurance in the conditions of approval or any of the paperwork that sets that stuff aside. We've created the units and the presumption is that they are reserved for that purpose, but there's nothing to the ordinance that would be a deed restriction on those units or any requirement that they be made available as low-income units. They're simply a portion of a larger property. So
this is the same way that the Creek Bridge subdivision approved the inclusionary housing, where they substituted secondary units for the inclusion. And that was the same justification that they did for the Rancho San Houston, the Ambrosia, as well as the Tupper. Same applicable standards that they applied. They went back to the Creek Bridge.
Well, okay. I'm not concerned about what was done in the past. I'm concerned about what's before us today or tonight, and it's not clear to me, certainly, that there is a requirement that any of these units be set aside for the purpose they clearly were intended. So what's our guarantee? How are we assured that this is actually
going to happen, because it did not happen with Creek Bridge. They built the units, but to the best of my knowledge, not a single one of them's been rented for that to anyone at any point. I've spoken to a number of the residents over there, and it's never done it. It's never served that purpose. So my question is, where it sounds like what Dan read, it says that there needs to be some force in this, but that does not exist as far as I can tell. Would you guys like to address that?
Please do. I'd like
Can
to
I
hear
make one
that.
comment?
Can't wait to hear
Pardon me?
this.
Make a comment.
Sure.
Okay, as far as Creek Bridge went, I was here,
Yeah.
and, yeah, the granny quarters, whatever you want to call them, and the problem came up, and at that time, was that there was no way to enforce that the person that was renting that particular unit, they had no guidelines as far as income or whatever. So, and I believe Larry Kane was the manager at that time, and I just made a comment from the podium, is Larry going to go out and check this every month?
Okay.
You know.
Okay. Sir.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Norm Mattioni on behalf of the development applicant on this Copperfield subdivision. I'm going to give you a legal answer. Perhaps Kathy Astrick can speak to the particulars, but and perhaps you've gotten this analysis, and I heard some of it from the city attorney. When the law provides, by failure to act, that the map is deemed automatically approved, it includes all the conditions that were attached. From my review of the record, there was no debate throughout any of the hearings that the Planning Commission had regarding the map of meeting the requirements of 11-09. Thus, in the automatic approval, the law is assuming that that ordinance has been met as a matter of law, that it is there, that requirement has been met. That's the technical answer that fits, well, I'm not sure what advice you've gotten from outside counsel, as I think you've alluded to Miller Starr giving some opinion. But that's the scope of it in terms of how I attempted to present it in my letter, that once approved, all of the requirements that should have been applied are assumed to have been applied, and if they were not, then there's a fallback position of anybody having an ability to challenge the automatic approval within a statute of limitations period that is also run. So that's the legal answer. And I know you're struggling beyond that, but I needed to put that on the record for you. And maybe Ms. Astrike has something more to add. I don't know the particulars of how the affordable housing was addressed.
Okay, thank you. John, I'm sorry, did you have a question, John? Did you have a question for Mr. Mattioni?
Well, I don't know if it's a question to him or just a comment to the city council, but I might remind that I also had conversations concerning this specific thing, and when a property comes over by operation of law, because no human being approved it, the conditions do not come over, and we can start over again. And I made that suggestion in closed session, and you know.
Yeah, I don't.
Okay.
I don't think that
I think we
was-
should renegotiate.
Okay. Kathy, did you have anything to add?
Mr. Mayor and members of the council, Kathy Astrike with Edenbridge Homes, and when we first talked about the inclusionary units, accessory units were deemed appropriate, and so we planned those units within the subdivision as Meritage Homes, the Rancho Vista, as all of the other previous subdivisions before us. So I don't think that we had any questions as to whether our 9 units, which is 20%, met that ordinance. We just felt it had met the ordinance. We have had internal discussions and how we're going to handle the sale of those units, because those accessory units are on individual lots which also contain homes. And so our internal discussions basically fall back to our disclosures. And we've decided that our disclosures are going to be to the buyers of those lots, that if they determine that they're going to rent those units out, that they need to follow the county's load and income requirements, and they would then have to forevermore have those low income requirements be met for those units. If they decide to have their mother-in-law live in those units, then I think that's also appropriate. But that's the kind of disclosures that we've internally decided are going to be included with the sale of those lots, of those 9 lots.
Okay.
Each of the units, as it's been planned, along with also the Rancho Vista and other subdivisions, are going to have their own separate water meters and things like that. So they can be electrical meters, they can be rented out at some point in the future. I guess that's how we decided to cover that within the sale of those lots.
Okay. Deborah, yes.
Well, I have a suggestion maybe that would solve this issue, because I have seen subdivisions that there are inclusionary housing agreements as a part of the approval of the subdivision, and I would ask the developer if at this point you only have this agreement, this meeting here to approve the final map. It's your last meeting, but perhaps they'd agree to come back with an inclusionary housing agreement that meets some of these concerns.
What would the agreement consist of, in lieu fees?
No, the provision of these units as low or moderate income housing, and the fact that when they transfer, they're always going to have a deed restriction that restricts them to low and moderate income.
So give them an opportunity to cure the fatal flaw that is now before us? That's mandatory disapproval of the final map? I mean, Government Code Section 66458 is very clear. The body shall disapprove the map if it does not comply with the subdivision ordinance, in this case 1109. And it's undisputed, there can be no argument that the Copperleaf subdivision right now does not comply with 1109. As far as disclosures and rental agreements, that's not an allowable mechanism. For a rental unit, it has to be a deed restriction. For units offered for sale, it has to be a deed restriction. That should have been put as a condition of approval. If it wasn't, then that's too bad. But right now, it says the legislative body shall disapprove the map.
It was never intended for these to have resale. They were always going to be rentals.
Okay, well, even still, as a rental then, it falls under Section B5, deed restriction. A deed of restriction, covenant, and or other instrument enforceable by the city and approved by the city attorney ahead of time shall be recorded against the title of the property within which the reserved units are located, limiting the rental of reserved units, that'd be 1 or 2 of the 9, as described in subsection B4 of this section. It has to be one of those things. It can't be a disclosure or a hope that it's going to be done, and no, Larry Kane doesn't have to go out and check, or our city manager at the time. The San Juan ordinance is very clear. It's crystal clear.
The problem is you don't have lots there until this map is recorded as a final map, so you don't have an ability to put a deed restriction on a lot that isn't there yet. So it has to be some agreement in the future. Right. And that's why I'm saying that typically, and we have somebody here in the audience that writes the books on this stuff, so I would ask the developer's attorney to explain to you how this can be put into an agreement where it's required in the future.
All conditions of approval are requirements of things to be done in the future. And one cure would have been to require as a condition of approval that 1 out of every 5 for-sale units be sold at low to very low rates, and it describes the HUD statistics on how you figure that out. Or the 9 rental units be deed restricted. That could have been put as a condition of approval in the future. But it was not. It's not in here. It's not before us. Therefore, it's inappropriate and I think illegal for the San Juan City Council to approve the final map, because it says the legislative body shall disapprove the map, period.
Mr. Mayor, excuse me.
Yes, ma'am.
You've already called for public comment, and I was trying to get a little bit up to speed with
Sure.
the agenda, and I was late coming to the meeting because actually coincidentally I was on.
I need to come up to that.
Would you come up to the podium and the microphone, please?
Sure. I was very interested in just kind of catching up with what's going on with the new development. My name is Jacqueline Morris. I live on 46 Mission Street. Good evening, council members and Mr. Mayor, and welcome new council members. Anyway, I was late getting here because I was actually, interestingly enough, on the Mission Vineyard Road, right by the proposed Copperleaf development. What delayed my arrival here was there was an accident. As you all know, the impact, it's sort of like a broken record on 156 commuter traffic. So I was coming home from Salinas this evening about 6:20 to try to get here on time, and there was traffic backed up, and so I decided to come through town and take the light at the Alameda. I also had to drop off some medication at my daughter's home, who lives on Mission Vineyard as well. So I took the Mission Vineyard road, and there was a vehicle in front of me, and all of a sudden, as we make the turn around Real Hacienda Hotel, this little car decided to speed up on that little small narrow road and pass three of us. When he passed, or she passed, there was another car coming in the opposite direction. Near miss. Long story short, the car ended up in the row of pine trees in front of the RV Mission Park. My concern, listening to this meeting, not knowing that this may have some relevance or not to this proposed final map approval, is number one, my question as a citizen that just witnessed a near, have been a fatal accident. Does this map include improvement of that road? Does this map allow for improvement of the road and enlargement and a safer thoroughway? Because people are always going to try to make a shortcut out of that road. It's a very short road. At this point, it is a country road. It's potted up. It's very narrow. And people are trying to pass so that they can bypass the line of cars. So as a concerned citizen, what is this? Is this map including any safety precautions for that? And maybe the map just has way too many houses for the amount of safety that we have to consider on that road. And number two, I'm sitting here listening to this bantering back and forth, and excuse me, but I don't appreciate other council members being directly rude in front of the public to others. I felt that the question by Councilman Bach and Councilman DeVries was out of order and very rude and unprofessional. And I find that offensive. Okay? We're here for the betterment of this community and a resolution for all of us to decide what's best for this community. I don't think that's the place for that here. Anyway, moving on. So my question here and my observations is these traffic impact studies, they're from 2012. This is 2017. How is that relevance to the approval of this whole entire project and this map? These impact fees, they're from 2012. How are they projected for current assessed fees? So my opinion, and it's only opinion of the public, is I agree with Councilman DeVries. You know, there's also some issue that this map was approved not in the best information provided to council of the Planning Commission to approve this map, and now it's dumped on you all. I think the process has been, lack of a word, I'm emotional now, excuse me, but I feel that the process has been muddied and you're being dealt with a flawed product, and it feels like you're being pressured by members in your audience that their better interest is to go ahead with this map and this project. I find that you need to take some time to think about it. Thank you.
So, ma'am?
Yes.
This is a very long, drawn-out process.
I understand that.
The concerns that you've raised, I think we all share them. Unfortunately, we're not necessarily being rushed by the members of the audience, but we're being rushed by the requirements of the state code. We're forced into certain actions on a certain timetable. Unfortunately, we're at our last. I'm going to speak.
Sure, yes.
we are forced to take action of some kind tonight. We have been forced into action previous to tonight. The questions that you've raised were brought up or should have been brought up and addressed months ago with the Planning Commission. I think we all agree here that they were not adequately addressed, and by, as John described, what was the term you used?
Administrative malfeasance.
Administrative malfeasance. I would say the process was at best was extremely poorly handled by the city staff at the time, and today we're faced, as you pointed out, with a mess.
It's a mess.
Ma'am, you've had your time. I'm going to give you my card. This is my cell phone number. I would encourage you to call me in a couple of days, and I'll walk you through the whole process and explain it to you if you'd like more background. But tonight we need to move on.
Okay, I guess just one final comment. I guess my concern is that you're not being forced to make a decision even though the state was holding your hand by the fire. So inaction or not moving forward is also a form of saying this is what we decide.
If we don't take action, it's taken for us. That's the problem. It's not that simple. And again, please call me and I'll walk you through it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sure.
Thank you, Chris.
Okay. So, back to the city attorney. You had a suggestion that I'd like to hear more about. Suggestion about some additional agreement potentially.
So typically, that is an agreement that's executed at some point with the subdivision, and I think that the developer could agree tonight to come forward with such an agreement. I also just want to comment that you know the risks involved with after the city engineer has certified the map, not approving the map. So if you take the action tonight, I know you're well advised on the risk, and you're free to take the action you feel you need to take tonight.
Okay. So, can you be a little more specific about what suggestion you're making to the developer? Can we get some input from them potentially?
I think they probably know these type of agreements better than I do, to tell you the truth. They draft them and they bring them forward to the city, so.
Norm Mattioni again, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. The problem with what's being suggested is that it contradicts all of the legal advice you've gotten, or I assume you've gotten to date, other than Mr. DeVries's legal advice tonight. The question tonight is whether the final map conforms.
Sir, I'm going to interrupt you. I don't agree. What we're asking is if you're open to having a conversation and creating another agreement. We're not talking about addressing we're not talking about the agreements already made and what's already before us. We're talking about moving forward. Miss Ostrick has talked to me personally about expressing her concern that there's a perception that this has been shoved down the throat of the city. It has clearly been shoved down the throat of the city, not necessarily by any misaction on your part, but by the process that has happened here in the city. You have benefited from the lack of sophistication here, and we're asking for you to work with us. At some point, we'd like you to work with us. And this seems like a fairly straightforward piece. The intent was there to create the inclusionary housing, and all we'd like is some protections for that.
Well, obviously, I have to understand the frustration that I'm hearing. And it's not my decision.
I understand that.
To accept working out an agreement. But if I might just add a word, I'm never opposed to talking and exploring solutions, and would advise the client to do that.
Thank you.
I just wanted, for the record, as briefly as I can, not to create any more frustration, that it's sounding like a condition added to the final map that wasn't on the tentative map. That's my position. Okay?
Understood.
Thank you.
Sure.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
May I respond to that?
Sure.
First of all, I want to make one thing clear. I am not offering legal advice to this body or anyone else, I clearly said, in my opinion, and I'm going to be voting no, or I'm going to make a motion to disapprove the map, and I stated the reasons why, and the findings why. And those reasons included government code sections that you yourself cited in a letter addressed to us. So if you don't want us to read those government code sections, then, well, I have read them, and the language of them is very clear. A local agency shall disapprove a map for failure to meet or the local ordinance that were applied to the subdivision at the time of the approval of the tentative map. 66473, 66458. So it's up to us as a council to decide right now, before we're even able to approve a final map, whether it's in conformance with the San Juan Municipal Code that applies to subdivisions. We have an ordinance, 1109. It's indisputed, it's undisputed that this development, as proposed, as currently before us, does not comply with 1109. Therefore, by law, we cannot approve the final map. And as to any opportunity to cure, what everyone seems to agree is a fatal flaw, a fatal defect in this thing now with a sidebar agreement or a substantive agreement, I would wholeheartedly resist that. Because as you said, this project was shoved down our throats with the automatic approval, and turnabout is fair play. Turnabout is fair play. You didn't comply with the local ordinance. The government code sections you yourself cited require conformance with the local subdivision ordinance. It's the end of the story.
Okay.
Well,
sorry.
You have the
Excuse me.
final word.
Yeah, I think we're going to keep it here for the moment, please.
Okay.
Jim, do you have anything to add?
Go ahead.
Not to ask, no.
Anything to add to the conversation?
Just the fact that, and I feel like I should defend the planning commission. You know, we're all amateurs at this. We all have jobs. We all have families. We've got 5 people to sit on the board of planning commission, and they did their best.
Yeah.
And maybe they did not have all the information. Whatever happened, it's not their fault. We asked them to volunteer to help this city. They did. It came down badly, and I think that's what we got. But the fact of the matter is, they made a finding that it was incompatible with the city ordinance. They made a finding on that. I don't know how we can go back on that right now.
Right.
I'm going to vote to approve this. I'm going to make a motion if that comes to it. Dan has a motion on the floor, and
okay.
Yeah. But I think that let's not be jumping on our planning commissioners.
Okay. Anything else from the council? Anything?
I'm not going to say anything. Apparently, whatever I said was rude, so.
Well, that's not a surprise, is it, Tony?
Yeah.
Hey, when you're 80 years old, you can be grumpy.
What's that?
I
You can make a motion when you're ready.
I'm having some problems. I think the legal term is harmonizing the 2 laws, which are obviously incompatible. And, you know, which one wins?
Yeah.
Which one wins? You know, they're incompatible on their face. Clear language on their face. They're not going like this. They're going like this. Which one wins? And I'm trying to decide that right now, and I have not made a decision yet.
Do you have something new to contribute?
I would only agree with Councilman West that the issue of meeting the condition of the affordable housing had to be addressed and was addressed. However, it may have come out at the planning commission regarding the tentative. And so you're only looking at the consistency. Thank you very much.
Nope, thank you. I appreciate your patience too. It's been a long one, hasn't it? Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion.
I'd like to make some comments.
Sure.
Myself, actually. I have a lot of problems with this project. Personally, I don't think it's a good project for a variety of reasons. I do lament the fact that we did not have, that the Planning Commission was not properly prepared to handle this. I think I agree with John that we need to look to the future and how we put into place some safeguards
to ensure that this does not happen again, because this project has seriously eroded confidence in this body and the Planning Commission, the city, and has done a tremendous amount of damage to the city. And I am very, very unhappy about this moving forward, but unfortunately I don't see a clear path to another outcome. Councilmember DeVries, you have a motion.
Sure, just one comment by way of response. The Planning Commission did not make any specific findings that the project as proposed was in compliance with all San Juan Bautista Municipal Code ordinances. The findings it made was that it was consistent with the general plan that then existed. So any idea that the Planning Commission went through the same kind of analysis under the government code or under San Juan Code 1109, I think that's just misplaced. I've read the Planning Commission staff reports, everything else. The inclusionary housing ordinance isn't even brought up, much less brought up and said, this ordinance exists and this is how we're going to comply with it. It wasn't even brought to their attention, nor was it brought to our attention. So,
Roger?
It's not in any of the reports. So anyway, I'd like to hereby make a motion that the San Juan Bautista City Council disapprove the final map pursuant to California Government Code Section 66473, 66458, and any others that may be applicable for the proposal's failure to conform to San Juan Bautista Municipal Code Section 11-09 pertaining to inclusionary housing.
And Councilmember DeVries, that is the final subdivision map, Copperleaf subdivision tract number 337.
Correct.
Thank you. Do you hear a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Trish, roll call, please.
Councilmember Bach?
No.
Councilmember Freeman?
Yes.
Councilmember DeVries?
Yes.
Vice Mayor West?
No.
Mayor Martirana?
No.
Motion is stated by the maker fails.
I'd like to make a motion. What number is this on this resolution?
This would be 05.
05. A resolution of the City Council of the City of San Juan Bautista approving the final map of the Copperleaf subdivision, tract number 337, together with subdivision agreement in accordance with the San Juan Municipal Code, Chapter 10-2.
Second.
Councilmember Bach?
Yes.
Councilmember Freeman?
No.
Councilmember DeVries?
No.
Vice Mayor West?
Yes.
Mayor Martirana?
Aye.
All members of the council being present, the motion is stated by the maker passes 3-2.
Okay, thank you all. Thank you all. Item 7C, I gather we're not going to be hearing that tonight?
Thank you very much for your time today, Bob.
Thank you. The agreement with IWRQ, that you said you were going to bring something back later, or is that going to?
No, that was for the website revision.
So that was for?
That's a different one. This is for the permit licensing and land use software.
I'm
so
sorry.
This was actually presented to you guys at the December 20th meeting. I presented that I'd explored multiple options and did an analysis of what they had to offer, and decided that iWork software actually offers the same capability with a little less aesthetic beauty than some of the other ones, and it's designed a lot more for small towns such as ours versus larger cities where there's bigger emphasis on communication between departments, which isn't that much of an issue for us with this, since I can just yell over to Carmen. So now we're getting to the point where it'd be beneficial for us to actually start the contract and the implementation of the software so that we can get it all installed, get all of our forms uploaded, and start myself and Carmen and Nick training on how to actually use this so that we can get it going forward. So what they offered to do if we wanted to go early before the beginning of the new fiscal year was an agreement where we would pay the setup fee of $2,700, and then they would just prorate the months between now and July at $375 a month, which is basically what it would be at $4,500 a year. And then we will pay the full year starting in July for the next year through July. So I'm just asking for your approval because it just barely exceeds the $5,000 mark where we have to ask whether you will direct Roger to sign the contract and let us get moving forward with the software.
I'm really in favor of this, number one, but I'm just curious, is it cross-platform compatible, i.e. Windows and Apple? I'm thinking of the iPad in particular. Can, let's say, a code check person go out with an iPad and then transmit it back to a Windows computer at home base, you know?
Yes, because it's web-based. So anyone in the field would just be accessing it through the internet, so they just use whatever browser they use on their mobile device.
Well, that's even better then.
I thought doesn't it refer to Chrome?
There is a reference to Chrome, but I talked to the people and they said it's whatever we buy. And
It's not
since we'd be
limited to-
buying the things for the field, if there was that restriction, we just wouldn't buy an iPad, we'd buy an Android device. So, because this would only be for our people doing the inspections out in the field, so.
Okay, but it is limited to Chrome.
I don't believe so. I mean, from my talks with them,
That's what it
said
says.
anything
It says it is, which seems a little...
Restricted.
Yeah, being an Apple user, that's a problem usually.
Has Google come up with a Chrome version for iOS?
I don't know. And I don't think that's a deal breaker.
Since we don't have a single Apple device in the entire city, I don't think that will be an issue.
Probably not gonna drive
I don't think Roger has a strong preference for iOS. But if that comes up, I can clarify
Just
that.
curious,
Okay.
just curious. Any other questions? Tony, Jim, Dan?
No, none.
No? It doesn't look like, any questions from the public? Comments from the public? Come on, say something, Dave.
As you were. Continue. Go, just move forward. Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion, we approve, or wait, did you close the public hearing?
Yes.
I'd make a motion, we approve resolution number 2017 06, a resolution of the City Council of the City of San Juan Bautista approving an agreement between the city and IWORQ or something for community development software applications and services.
I'll second it.
Councilmember Bach?
Yes.
Councilmember Freeman?
Yes.
Councilmember DeFreeze?
Yes.
Vice Mayor West?
Yes.
Mayor Martirana?
Aye.
All members of the council being present, the motion is carried by the mayor unanimous.
Okay, discussion item, Senior Council on Aging Representative. Did I?
Yeah, I ain't doing that one.
Nobody, when I spoke to these folks, nobody mentioned anything about the person being over a certain age.
Somewhere I saw over 60.
It does say that, yes.
Well, that's a kid.
So Dan and I are off the hook for that one. Right?
Well, I was actually going to volunteer because I live in Santa Cruz, but then that rules me out.
I'll take the mornings off and go over there.
Well, I think so. I don't know. Staff report?
I think
this is
the only real difference is that they had been reaching out to San Benito County now specifically, and someone from Hollister is going to be involved. So now they're not going to be all in Santa Cruz. There will be a few during the year that will be in San Benito County. So that changes a little bit in terms of not having to drive. But then also, I think the city was willing to pay mileage as well. A suggestion that we could pay mileage if that was an incentive that would get someone to step forward for this.
Well, I believe Mickey Luna is the representative from the city of Hollister, and I believe Anthony Botello is the representative from, for the county board of supervisors. So they were just looking for somebody from us. They asked that we, as I understand it, they are looking for someone from the council to be appointed, but that they were fine with an alternate who could be a member of the public or staff to attend those meetings. That was my understanding. Does that jibe with what you guys know? Yes? Okay. Okay, so should we, I mean, is there any reason we shouldn't handle this like the other committee appointments and so forth, where the mayor appoint somebody? Any objections?
Do you know when the meetings are?
I know there was a meeting last week, and I believe it's a monthly.
That's too close to Grand Rock headquarters for me. I'm telling you, I ain't going there.
So, any comments, thoughts, suggestions, anyone? No? Okay. Any objection to any objection to this being added to the mayor's appointments? No, okay. In that case, Tony, as the senior member,
Yeah, I think that's very appropriate.
I'm appointing you as the city's representative to the area agency on the Aging Advisory Council, and would ask staff to provide Councilmember Bach with the schedule of meetings. And
Mileage?
no, he doesn't need mileage.
Yeah,
He doesn't need mileage. And potentially suggest to him that Matt, living there, might occasionally attend, and as will
At
I.
least you can tell me where it is, you know.
I know this last meeting was held in Watsonville.
Could've gone
I
to the
believe
Wooden
that their next meeting's going to be held at Doña Esther.
It's not far. It's not very far.
That one's an easy
We'll
one
give
for you.
gas then.
But anyway, I can help you out with those too, since I work in Watsonville. Okay.
I like that because I could have gone to the Nickel for lunch right after.
Yeah, it's going to be Wednesday afternoon.
Moving right along, the curb painting we discussed, and I think we're just waiting for the weather to turn before we really take that on, so we'll continue that item. And John, do you have any, sorry,
As far as the
Tony?
curb painting goes?
Yes.
At the cemetery, I have a gas-powered pressure washer.
Uh-huh.
Does the city have one? A gas-powered one? Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
John, do you have any
I tried to get in contact with the superintendent twice, and she was out of town. I've been told that she's back in town, but I just didn't have time.
Sure.
Late this week.
Okay.
Or earlier this week. Well, I do have one more little comment. Maybe I don't know if I should save it for number 9 or right now.
Is it to do with discussion item C?
See?
The school.
The school?
Kind of.
Okay.
It's
What might that
school-age
be?
kids. I had a couple of constituents come and talk to me. They were upset about being kicked out of the Boy Scout Hall.
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds like we should take that up as an item.
My neighbors are upset about it, so,
Okay.
I take my representation of my neighborhood seriously. So.
You think your neighbors get upset?
Okay. So, well, that takes us to comments then. City Council comments. John, I guess we heard yours.
Yeah.
Has to do with the Boy Scout Hall.
Yeah.
I'd say that has definitely been raised some red flags. Tony, anything?
The only thing, everybody got this, I'm concerned that we're ready for this. We got approximately 10 months to get our ducks in a row as far as people growing marijuana in town. And there was a pretty interesting article in the Western Cities about the things that you need to do and permits and inspections and whatever.
We've said that it's illegal in the city, period.
You don't have a choice.
I believe.
I have a staff report for you that's going to come forward at some point. I mean, we do have time until the end of the year, but, I was trying to work it in here when we didn't have so many other issues, and so I'll try to bring that to you next month. I'll talk with the city manager.
Okay, great.
Because it'll probably take, there'll probably be public comments, so it'll probably take an hour to go through the options you have available. But you will have to take further action to ban growing or decide whether you want to permit some, growing and et cetera.
See, this doesn't have anything to do with dispensaries.
I understand.
This is, you want to grow 6 plants in your backyard.
Okay.
With the front yard.
Well, they're going to steal it if it grows in the front yard.
Jesus. I don't have anything. Dan, do you have any comments? Jim?
No, none.
Okay. City manager? City attorney?
So I do. Today I received the notice of appeal on the Dadwall convenience store gas station. So they're appealing that to the Court of Appeals. And I also received a motion for attorney's fees. Although the firm wasn't successful, they're making a motion that they did a service to the public. And so they're making a motion for attorney's fees in the amount of, I believe it was $440,000. Wow. They said they put 760 hours of work into it for something, between their associates and partners. And then they asked for a multiplier of 1.5 because of the difficulty involved. So doubling the fees by 1.5. So the good news to the city of San Juan is that I did an agreement with Dadwall so that they have to pay for those fees and
if they're granted.
Right, and defend the motion. So it's really a matter between Dadwall and his firm as to what they pay. As far as the appeal is concerned, that'll involve briefing and then the possibility of oral argument at the Court of Appeals, the 6th District in San Jose.
Exciting.
So we're not on the hook for anything?
You do not have to pay the attorney's fees, but I would say that probably to get through to the Court of Appeals at this point will probably put another year onto the project. I think maybe, yes. Well, actually, technically, they did not get an injunction, so technically they could proceed, but they may get an injunction on the project, and or, the financing usually is in jeopardy if there's an appeal until the appeal is decided.
Okay. Entertaining a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you very much, everyone.